Hello everyone, welcome to the Redmen TV. It is Redmen Originals. I'm delighted to be joined by Ste P, by Chloe Bloxham and by Dan Clubb for this one. We've got an action-packed show for you. First off, in part one, we're going to be looking at what Liverpool squad needs are for this summer and moving forwards. In part two, we're going to be looking at all the transfer links, the ones that Dan has deemed concrete enough to talk about today.
No pressure.
No pressure whatsoever. But before we get into that, we do have to announce that we are going to be going live in Dundee with our first live show north of the border. Tickets are on sale now from skiddle.com. You can check our socials for the links as well. If you go to skiddle.com and you type in the Redmen TV, it will come up. It's Thursday, the 10th of October. It'll be us and it'll be Keo singing all the Liverpool songs, and it promises to be great. It is the New Era tour, so please come over there if you're north of the border. Join us for a night partying in Scotland. I cannot wait for that one. But we're going to get into it anyway. We're going to start analysing the squads. Arne Slot is now the head coach of Liverpool Football Club. I've actually not spoken to you too much, certainly not on camera, since he's been sort of announced and stuff. But how are you feeling about him in general?
I kind of go with the Klopp mantra of all in on him. You've got to give the guy an opportunity. I'm quite pleased that his arriving at the club's been understated, because football and Manchester United at David Moyes alive, didn't they, after Ferguson left? So it's kind of nice it's been a bit low-key. I don't know whether he feels like that, but I certainly do. Let him get on with his job and start assessing where the club's at, and the most important things, Trent's contract probably being at the top of that. But, you know, there's some big things for him to get stuck into. So, if I'm being honest, I thought we needed a change in the way we played football a little bit, to be even more front-footed, because that's the way that City are, and Arsenal. I know you agree, because I've had the conversation before. Technically, they're right up there. This is almost like for like, in terms of, if you look at the stats from last season, pressing and winning the ball back in high positions, they might be the only side that did it more than we did. So it's a similar style of play. But just interested to see how it pans out, because I think this will be hopefully be more technically based under him than emotion based, winning games under Klopp, which is all done with, you know, fist pumps and heart. And I love that. But is it time for something different that's more technically based rather than winning games on heart and passion? Because that's a hard thing to do for 38 games a season. Yeah,
no, absolutely. I mean, I sort of said it to anyone who'll listen actually recently, Chloe, but I was kind of ready for a new manager at Liverpool Football Club, but I wasn't ready for a new man at the helm of Liverpool Football Club. And I'm kind of with Steve there. I'm very much like, Liverpool are ready to move on and be the next thing.
Not sure how I feel about that. I totally get it in terms of tactically, but to be perfectly honest, for the majority of my life, Jurgen Klopp being Liverpool manager is all I've known, at least from when I really started to be able to understand football on a deeper level. Jurgen Klopp's all I've known, so it's a little bit strange not having him there. However, what I will say is, I'm excited for it, because I don't know what's next, but I have not had this moment. Obviously, we lost Brendan Rodgers and Jurgen Klopp came in, but once again, I was still about 12, 13, so it wasn't like I fully bought into, you know, the excitement of it all. It was just, oh yeah, it's football. But now it's like, I'm excited to see the tactical changes. I'm excited for us to have more control over the game of football, but still have that high press. I'm excited to see what his first lineup is. I haven't got a clue who's going to start that lineup, and that is exciting to me. I can't wait to see what he does in the summer in terms of transfers in and out. So I'm looking at it as a positive. There was nothing we could have done to keep Jurgen Klopp, and he clearly needed to leave in terms of the whole thing with his energy. So, and seeing him looking 10 years younger than what he did a month ago at that Champions League final tells me everything I need to know about where he was as well. So I'm excited for it. I don't know how it's going to go. I'm hoping for the best. I'm going to back the manager. But really, I just can't wait to see what he starts doing with this squad.
And there's loads to do, Dan, isn't there? Which brings us neatly and nicely onto that. I mean, what's the first thing that you think he's got to decide?
This formation. It's probably the first one, if I'm being honest. Yeah, I mean, Steve references it a moment ago, really. Obviously, there are similarities with the way he goes about his business, but there are also differences as well, and one of the main ones being that it's seemingly his preferred formation. I think in terms of transitions, in terms of the way he likes his teams to be very front-footed and win the ball high and turnovers and all that sort of stuff, that is very sort of in line and akin to Klopp's way. And it's not quite heavy metal, but it was described to me recently as like pop music football. I'm not quite sure what I felt about that, to be honest with you, but still with like an intensity that means you're going to go and win it and you want to be that side that takes the game to the opposition. But it has a sort of a calm element to it as well, whereby we can be more controlled and dominant in possession. And I'm not quite sure Ed Sheeran fitted the mantra, to be fair, but whatever it meant, I kind of got it personally. But anyway, I think just decide on what his formation is going to be, because that sort of lends itself and prices into the thinking of so much that follows in terms of the personnel, in terms of the squad, in terms of transfers in and out. So yeah, that has to be the first protocol for me. And I'm with the guys as well. I'm excited by it. And, you know, Steve references obviously what happened with Manchester United and David Moyes. I mean, it felt like, to me, like the ownership at Manchester United has been asleep at the wheel for numerous years now and hasn't really cared which direction they were heading. Whereas FSG right now, it feels the complete polar opposite to that, because whatever you think about them, if you look at the appointments they're making behind the scenes as well as sort of in front of the scenes, that definitely is an expression. But in terms of the people they're bringing in, the best in class, they're doing all the right things and they're putting the very best people back in there. And that, to me, smacks of a side in a football club that want to get back to the very, very top of its game. So I'm really optimistic and really excited by it all.
It's also an ownership group that seems to be going back to the hits almost, don't they? If we keep up with the music and stuff like that, obviously bringing Michael Edwards in and everything else, Ste, obviously. We know exactly what they were, but it does also make you think that there may have been some problems with the last manager at the end of his tenure.
Yeah, they were very forthright in terms of who they wanted signings-wise, weren't they? And managers can often engineer themselves more power than they really should have. And if you look at Rafa Benitez, for instance, his last contract, he had everything under his control, everything, and you come away a little bit from the important day-to-day things of running your football team and getting close to your players. In terms of bringing in the people that we brought in, as Dan says, best in class, we're clearly going to run the football club in a completely different way, and it might be part of the low-key sort of introduction to Slot, in that we've not been heralded as the new figurehead at Liverpool Football Club, because he isn't. He's the head coach, and it's this European continental football management style where you have a sporting director and then people above and beyond. It's probably a good thing for the club right now, because these guys, you know, we don't need to question Michael Edwards' history and his integrity and what he's done for the football club. He's now got FSG under his wing, not just Liverpool Football Club, so he might benefit from that. And then obviously the multiple club scenario, where if we buy some, for instance, we use South America as an example, that was huge on his list of priorities to come back. That had to be written into his role. So we can only benefit from those things, but bringing these guys back in who've been there, done it, tried and tested, the rest of the football world kind of went, wow. Two of our biggest rivals, United and Chelsea, poured their heart out to him and tried to get him on board, and he wasn't having any of it. Where it was when he left, he was done with football. He had no intention of being in football for as long as he was. Massive kudos to Liverpool and FSG for getting him back in, because we will go in the right direction with all the right things being done at all the right times. And it go back to this emotion thing. Listen, I get Chloe's point before about she's only ever known Jurgen Klopp. Jurgen Klopp as a man will never be repeated at Liverpool Football Club. He's a one-off. In terms of for the good of the football club, that level of emotion, that level of intensity, and at times that level of frustration can't be helpful, can't be healthy for the football club. Now we've got balanced people in positions, having conversations as a club committee, making the right choices rather than being driven by a need to go and sign that player just because you want him. There's got to be a rationale behind all the signings we do, and I think we'll see Slot's role in terms of the transfers will be very different to what Jurgen Klopp's was, and even Pep was very involved in the transfers, wasn't he? So, yeah, it's good. It's good for the club. Some stability back, get some stability back, and build it properly again.
Yeah, I can't wait for this summer. I think it's just dead interesting, isn't it, Chloe? Because I did a deep dive last week with Josh, and we were talking about like the profile of the squad, and the makeup of the squad wasn't quite right. Too many in certain areas, not enough in others. And I think Slot's going to come in, and with the help of Richard Hughes, who we've yet to mention yet, obviously the sporting director for us, as well as the help from Michael Edwards. They've got to start looking at the squad, and we've got to start looking at how we balance the squad out. I think that's what we're going to do now. So we're going to start with the goalkeeper department first. We're going to go through goalkeeper, defence, midfield, attack, take a short break, then come back and attack the transfers and stuff. But in terms of goalkeeper, I suppose the big question here is around maybe Caoimhin Kelleher, Chloe, and what he decides he wants to do this summer.
Yeah, I think he'll want to leave, and rightfully so. He's good enough to and he's proved in this last year. Look, he had a big dip in form, but once again he's shown that actually being consistently in a team and getting starts is really, really helpful as a goalkeeper. He's top quality. He will want to be number one. I think he only recently came out in an interview and said he's not stupid. Like, being number two at Liverpool is brilliant, but he actually wants to be number one elsewhere. So I think it'll be a big loss for Liverpool, because I think he was such a brilliant backup goalkeeper, and we will need to change that. We don't know what's happening with Adrian. Like, he didn't get a goodbye, but it also didn't feel like he was staying.
Forever, that bloke. He'll be there forever.
So yeah, it's interesting. Liverpool will have to look at a different goalkeeper for Kelleher. Maybe it's someone in the reserves or the development that we're bringing up, but we definitely need to fill that void.
Yeah, 100%. I think we will have to fill the void, if I'm being honest. The youngsters are exactly that. They're very young. There's Jaros, who's been away in Austria. He won the league, actually, with Sturm Graz in Austria, which is very impressive in itself. And Peter Luger, who I know they signed from Fluminense in Brazil, who they like a lot. And obviously Tafarel stick around to work with him. And, of course, Alisson Becker. But I do think Liverpool will have to replace Caoimhin Kelleher. And I do think what I've just said also, I think Kelleher will leave, personally. And I can't really begrudge him it either, to be honest with you. He's been an incredible servant to Liverpool in a strange roundabout sort of way. He hasn't obviously amassed the amount of games that you'd normally associate with that phrase that I've just said, but to do it and to be understudy to Alisson Becker and to come in and obviously cup games primarily and win us a couple of trophies along the way and play key parts within that, I think he's been brilliant. So again, I can't really sort of sit here and say, no, you've got to stay, you've got to stick around and wait for your chance, because as a goalkeeper, those chances are few and far between. And also, we're hopefully looking at another 5-6 more seasons worth of Alisson Becker. Like, you can't expect Caoimhin Kelleher, what is he now, 25, maybe even 26, something around there. Like, he's got to go and be a first-team goalkeeper somewhere, and I think this is the summer whereby he does it. It was close last summer. There was a bid from Nottingham Forest on deadline day in January as well. We've kept hold of him. I think this is the one whereby he leaves, and again, I'll say it again, I think we will have to go and sign a replacement.
Yeah, I think we do as well. Adrian, I'm the same as you guys. I'm like wondering what the hell he's going to do, because Chloe, your point was right. He didn't get the goodbye like everybody else, and yet he walked around after the game looking like he was leaving the football club, which is a little bit nuts.
We brought in, just on the goalkeeper situation, we have just FSG have appointed like a head of goalkeeper recruitment over the weekend, Hans Liefert. I don't know if everyone's seen that, an Austrian fella. He's worked at RB Salzburg for like the past 5-6 years as like a scout, a goalkeeping scout, and FSG, not Liverpool by the way, have appointed him to sort of look at goalkeepers around the world. So that's an interesting little appointment, and that could lend itself to the fact that we are looking in that particular department.
Do you think that's something to do with the advanced analytics then, and that side of things from Edwards and stuff like that? Because obviously the goalkeeper analytics is so different and young. That could be a whole new avenue for Liverpool to explore. Might
be a little bit out of Michael Edwards' wheelhouse potentially, and he is, like I say, he's an expert in that particular field, so maybe you're right. And also that would suggest that Liverpool or FSG once again are moving closer and closer towards the multi-club ownership situation, because otherwise Liverpool would just appoint like a goalkeeping scout, not FSG. So I would suggest that multi-club thing might be coming down the line too.
Jaros has just won the league and got international recognition. He'd have a job convincing him to come and be an understudy as well, because he actually now sees himself as a league winner, a first team goalkeeper, and with international recognition. So you see names banded round like Trafford and McCarthy and people like that. You know, I don't know if it's appealing to Trafford to come and be an understudy. I don't know.
I'm not sure he's the answer either. Young Anthony Patterson's the other one at Sunderland, who's been linked recently too. So there are names out there.
We've got a name that we'll be discussing in part 2 as well. That's worked quite closely with our new head coach and stuff like that as well. So we'll talk about him a little bit later on. Okay then, just for clarity, if Adrian leaves, we need someone to fill up a space in the squad in terms of homegrown as well, would we? Because Adrian has been that, hasn't he?
I think both Pitaluga and Yaros might tick that box. And there's also young Harvey Davies as well who could tick that particular box. So I think in terms of third choice, it's whether we brought in another experienced one, which is the common theme, isn't it, really, in the Premier League now? Look at Scott Carson, and I think Tom Heaton did it, didn't he, this year at Manchester United. So Liverpool had it with Adrian. We had it with Andy Lonergan beforehand too. So we could go down that avenue again, potentially. But I wonder whether we'd give the third choice one to one of the youngsters, because that would fill the homegrown void, I think.
My gut on that is why I like the experienced player is you don't need to give them minutes anywhere. You can still develop your young goalkeepers with loan spells and stuff like that, but you can't if they're not at your club. You know what I mean? Or they have to stay at your club, I should say. That's why I've always preferenced the experienced goalkeepers, your third. But yeah, I take your point. If there's enough players there, then why not? But I suppose then, Steve, for you, Kelleher, 40 million seem about fair now, or is that too high?
I don't know. I take the point everyone's made about, he's earned his stripes now to go and be a first team goalkeeper. But the question for me is he still hasn't gone a full season as a first team keeper. The peaks and troughs in the form that Chloe mentioned before, he wasn't great at times and then he improved. He's still, for me, if I'm a chairman of a football club and my manager comes to me and says, let's give Liverpool 40 million for Kelleher, he's still to some degree an unknown quantity in terms of a full season in a side that's not as good as Liverpool, for instance, or doesn't control games of football in the way that we have at times. I see it with a decent fee with add-ons in terms of where he gets to, and possibly, I don't know, they'll put a buyback clause in there. I can't see that working for him. I think 40 would be lovely. I think for me personally, I was thinking sort of 25 to 30.
What about you, Colin?
I'm squeezing every bit of money out of every single football
club.
That is possible. I take the point that he's not played the full season, but he's not played the full season because Alisson Becker is the best goalkeeper in the world. And the biggest accolade that you could give to Kelleher is this season when he did come in and he started. Bear in mind, at the time when Kelleher came in, Liverpool were in a title race, and he continued to keep Liverpool in that title race. Like, it's ridiculous as a second goalkeeper what he's done. And yeah, at first I think the Fulham game, one of the Fulham games, I thought, there's a bit of Southampton away last game of the season and that. But actually, the more games he played, the better he got. He made some brilliant saves in the Carabao Cup as well. That one from Gallagher in the last minute is a joke of a save. So yeah, I'd be squeezing money, especially if it's to go to another Premier League side, because I think he can be a number one goalkeeper for a lot of the Premier League teams. So for me, I'd be squeezing I'd try and get a minimum of 30 to 35 mil for him.
I like that. I think when you look around the league, Dan, you've got players there who, I know David Raya is probably, I think they've locked up, haven't they, the £27 million, but they did that a year ago. Aaron Ramsdale, I think he's better than him, to be honest. I think Kelleher's better than Aaron Ramsdale. You'd be talking that money for him, I suppose. I take Steve's points as well, but he's done a full half season now, and he played really, really well. So we're definitely going to need a backup goalkeeper, and unfortunately we probably need to spend a little bit of dough on him. So you need to recover some so you can put some money in the bank from it as well, and then hopefully spend a little less. We'll move on to the defence as well.
Can we talk about this? Because when you mentioned this earlier and we were looking at positions we need to improve, for the majority of last season, we were always saying we needed like a left centre-back / left back, could play the role of both, where I don't even know the formation we're playing, so it's hard for me to totally understand exactly, but I still think we need a left-footed centre-back. I love a left-footed centre-back and we don't have a single one of them. But like in terms of positions, like depending on the formation, depends on how many people I want in those positions, so I've got no idea.
So it's what he does in front of the back four that is susceptible to change, isn't it? Yeah. So I think it's it's a given that it's a back four.
Yeah. It's a back four. It's just how much Trent's going to invert, I think, is the question, really, to be honest. Depends on how much you need your left-sided centre-back.
He could even be moved to centre-mid. Let's be honest.
Let's discuss the formation where we've put it in the agenda at the midfield. Then.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So the defence, we're going to start with contracts. First of all, we've got Virgil van Dijk, we've got Trent Alexander-Arnold. Chloe, they're the two big ones that he needs to deal with this summer.
Yeah, he does, especially now that Trent's commenting on Jude Bellingham's European trophy photos. But yeah, Trent is the main one for me. Look, Virgil is unbelievable. He's our captain, but Trent is your future, and he's one of the greatest footballers in his position. So that needs to be locked down as quickly as possible. As for Virg, Michael Edwards, he's not going to want to hand out a big contract to a lad who's in his 30s, no matter how good Virgil van Dijk is. Maybe two to 3 more years. And hopefully we can offer that to Virgil, but it's vital that we get those two sorted, because obviously, once again, Virgil van Dijk's your captain and Trent Alexander-Arnold's your future of this. You build a team around him. That's how this works.
Okay, so we're going to sort out Virgil and Trent's contracts, or at least we're going to try to. State, is the positions that you're looking at right now in the defence and you're thinking we need someone for that, and why? Yeah,
it probably is. I mean, we brought Van der Berg back from Germany, and he's a great season. He made the team of the year, didn't he, as a centre back, and then he's gone and via somebody else said some stuff in the press, which is probably judgment wise not a great thing to do in terms of, did you back me when I was there? No, I kind of, you're hindering my career, I think is the phrase that was used. I wanted him to have a look at everybody, come in and have a look at everybody before making decisions. He hasn't had a bad season in Germany for nothing. He's had a decent season. Actually, the quickest recorded centre-back in German football.
Fuck off.
Yeah, and you wouldn't believe that.
No,
wouldn't believe that.
I think you could tell he didn't believe it.
Like, he's so slow.
No, it's not anymore.
Was he running downhill?
Yeah, with the wind behind him with the sail up and everything like that. So he's had a good season. Have a look at them, and a lot depends on where we see Joe Gomez. Does a manager coming in see Joe Gomez as a centre back, or does he see him as a utility player that can play right across the back four? And in that case, then that makes a difficult conversation. I take the point Chloe made about needing a left-sided centre back. I always get the pronunciation wrong.
Hincapie.
There you go. At Leverkusen. Sort of ticks that box, and he's in and out of the team, so it might be an opportunity to get him. He's all the things that you'd want. He's a good player on the ball. He's quick. He's aggressive. He wins the ball first and foremost, and he carries the ball and he's a good passer as well. So that is a possibility. But I think that potentially, if they don't see Gomez as a centre back, we've got 5 if you count them all. Do you want a 6th one? If you're bringing in a 6th one, you're writing off one career and there's a question mark over another one, because if you're playing with about 4, it's 2 centre-backs and you might have 6 on your books. So 4 lads are going to miss out, aren't they?
Who are the ones that you're keeping around?
First 2 for me on merit are Van Dijk and Quansah. They are. If you go back to Chloe's point earlier about don't know what his first squad looks like, they're your first 2. I think Konate's got some work to do to get back in. But he can do it, because we know how good he was. Paris final, best player on the pitch by 1,000,000 miles. You win that game, the media goes crazy about his performance, but it never works out like that, does it? And then obviously that's 3. And then Joe Gomez would tell you he's a centre back. Is that going to be? That's the key for me. What we do with Joe Gomez, that's absolutely the decision that decides whether we go and spend X amount of money on a marquee centre back, or, as we'll get into later on, do we do that elsewhere where I think the team needs it more.
So you've got your 4. In terms of I'll go Sudan instead then. Yeah, left back, is there any work to be done?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, and that's not really, Andy Robertson remains a constant within this squad, possibly first 11, but who knows. But for me, I think this is the summer where Kostas Tsimikas leaves the football club, personally. It's similar to the Kevin Keller conversation we had a moment ago, if I'm being honest with you. I think it's just the time whereby he has to be playing more regular football now. And I don't actually think, and people will disagree with me on this, that's absolutely fine, I don't actually think he's been outstanding when he's come into the side. Great. I think there's been patches whereby he's been okay. I've always been a big believer in, if you're a professional footballer, certainly in the prime of your career, like Tsimikas has been in for the past 18 months, 24 months potentially, you need to be playing regular football. And I've often questioned people if they're just happy not doing that. I don't really understand that mentality personally. So yeah, I think this is the one whereby we sort of part ways with Kostas, and he's been a brilliant footballer for us, take nothing away from him, back up and understudy to Andy Robertson's done a great job at times. But yeah, I think this is the one, and therefore I will be signing a left-sided centre-back who can also play at left-back. Someone like Hincapie, someone like Gonzalo Inacio, Pacho, possibly. We're going to talk about in a little bit more detail later on. He'd be in that conversation as well for me. I just think it's the right thing to do. I think we haven't got a natural backup, successor to Virgil van Dijk either. That could well be Joel Quansah with time. I see Quansah more as the right-sided one who's just going to become Joel Matip 2.0 a little bit myself personally. But yeah, we definitely need to do some work on the left side. Definitely need to do some work in the defence as well. And on the point about Joe Gomez, I think Joe Gomez will never nail down a spot in this Liverpool side again, which sounds really harsh, but it's not meant to be. I think he's going to do a bit of left back, bit of right back, bit of centre back, and that's him forever. The emergence of Conor Bradley probably reduces the chance of him ever playing right back much again, I would say, because he's just so outstanding. He feels like the backup now to Trent. But yeah, I think there's definitely work to be done. And if I was spending money anywhere in the defence, it would be left-sided centre-half stroke left back.
Okay, Chloe, do the right back for us then. What's your thinking at right back at this early stage of pre-season? It's not even pre-season. We've got Trent Alexander-Arnold. Is this the summer you move him into your midfield?
I'd like to see what it looks like. However, I am still a believer of the... If we're more in control of a game of football, maybe he's not attacked as much or exploited as much. Let's be perfectly honest. He's been exploited a lot in the past, 2 seasons. I still think he's unbelievable. And I actually think what he's being asked to do in his position doesn't help him defensively. However, he also at times can be a bit weak in those one-on-ones. That's just how it is. I'd like to see what it looks like, but at the same time, I'm a little bit scared because... in Liverpool's greatest side that I've ever seen, your right back was your best player, and it was Trent Alexander-Arnold, and he has so much space. He sees the pitch. If he moves into midfield, you get a lot less time on the ball. Sometimes you're receiving a ball with your back to the play. So I'd like to see what it's like, but I wouldn't be 100% buy into the him moving him into centre mid. I want to see how he does in that role. If he's better being utilised out wide because he's got more space, then that's where he needs to play. But it would be interesting to see because, you're going into the Euros now and I think he's been named as a centre mid, as a midfielder in Gareth Southgate's team. So I'd be interested to see what happens. If that does happen, Conor Bradley is my number one right back. And I'm probably using Joe Gomez as my backup. Hopefully. The only problem I have with Joe Gomez with doing all of those roles is, can he stay fit for the entire season for me? That's the only thing. Conor Bradley's still young. You don't want him to get any stress, injuries or anything like that. He's been absolutely superb in his, first breakout season. But yeah, I'd be interested in putting Trent in midfield, but it's not the be-all and end-all. If he's actually better suited, if he gets more time on the ball, then I want him at right back. It's just that simple.
Just on Joe Gomez, credit to him, not only for the way he performed this season, but injury-free. Yeah. Pretty much, but he's played a lot of football, more football than he's played in the past 4, 5, 6 seasons, it feels like. So you've got to give him his due. You're right to make the point, by the way, because injury issues have been there and fitness problems have definitely followed him.
Your problem
but
also
this year,
happens, if Kanate gets injured as well. If Kanate has this season,
well, that feels much more likely.
Yeah, exactly.
3 times minimum.
Yeah,
injuries. Unfortunately, that has been the case. It's a sad thing to say because he's outstanding on his day. I agree with Steve's point earlier, by the way, that he's been ousted for me in terms of the best person to partner Virgil van Dijk. But Kanate, as far as I'm aware, off the top of my head, hasn't been injury-free since he arrived at the football club. So you've kind of got to take it as a given. Well, even though he come with his problems, exactly, yes. So you've kind of got to take it as a given that that's going to continue to haunt him, unfortunately.
And that's funny enough. When we were talking about, you were talking about the left back stuff before, I couldn't help but think Tsimikas didn't even end the season as our backup left back.
Wasn't in the squad.
Gomez did.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Tsimikas wasn't in the 18.
Exactly.
That could be because of the personnel available. Gomez inverted, which released McAllister to go and do a bit more further up the pitch. You couldn't ask Tsimikas to invert. Tsimikas' best part of Liverpool was getting beyond and then chopping back, and then he could cross with either foot, couldn't he? And he was good at crossing. He made loads of chances for people.
His set pieces are good.
Yeah, set pieces were good. So I don't know whether that's about trying to free up McAllister to do a little bit more, because there was a 3-month period where our title challenge rested solely on his shoulders for me. He was everything that we ever could have wanted from that position. So yeah, you're right though. I don't agree with these guys. It's time for Tsimikas to go and be someone else.
And then Gomez, obviously we need to talk about the Saudi Pro League links as well. People are interested in him as well. And he's been here 9 years now, approaching 10 years. Obviously the longest serving player at the football club at the moment, I suppose, if you don't include people who've come up through the academy. and he's still not a first teamer. It must grate, especially when you were great when Liverpool won the league. You know what I mean? It must really hurt from a personal standpoint to just... And he's accepted it, and he's been a great squad player for it. And he's been, I think last season might have even had his best season he's had, certainly since that league winning season. So you don't begrudge him moving on and wanting to move on, but he's so valuable. I just couldn't let him go.
Well,
I just could not let him go.
Villa to get him. Yeah. Gerrard probably is already trying to get him to go do the Pro League thing. You sell him, let's say you sell him for 30 million quid, for instance, right? Where do you buy a player that can do all the things he can do for that price? You've probably got to buy two. And he's tried and tested in the Premier League, and he knows what it is to be in a team that for me, purely through versatility and that alone, and the fact that you quite rightly pointed out, he's had largely an injury-free season. I'm not considering selling Joe Gomez. No.
He's also English as well, so that's very important.
A massive help, yeah.
He's experienced now too. Yeah. Like, you just made the point there. He's our longest serving player. He's outlasted Jurgen Klopp. Like, there's a lot to be said for that, because especially when you consider the amount of work we did last summer in terms of the midfield rebuild and the amount of experience we actually lost in that one summer all-in-one hit. Joe Gomez now, with your Virgil van Dijks of this world, is bordering on the most experienced players we have. So you've got to keep them around, because you need that little bit in the house, that bit of know-how. So yeah, for me, it's a non-starter selling Joe Gomez.
And especially if you are considering moving Trent in midfield, because you're entering buying a backup right back territory, which you absolutely do not want to be doing anyway, do you?
Also, if Trent's playing on that right side of the midfield, I don't know what position we're going for here, but if he's on that right hand side, you want a more balanced right back for me in that, to give licence for Trent to go and do what he did, like he did against Fulham, where he comes up and he's the man. So yeah, I'd be 100% keeping Joe Gomez. I think he was the unsung hero of the season, to be perfectly honest.
So how many signings are we looking at here?
Left centre back /
one
left back.
Left-footed centre half will do me.
Capier solves all of your problems.
You like
Got it right then.
One left-footed centre half done.
Yeah.
Because he can't play left back.
And we need centre half. We can have a conversation. I've seen a lot of people saying Javel Quansah's solved all our centre half woes, and to a large extent he has. But unfortunately, we just lost Joel Matip, so we're down a number, and we know what being down a number centre half can unfortunately look like. Let's not live in that world again.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think we need one left-sided centre half who can play left back if that is what the team needs them to be. I'm absolutely fine for them to just be a left-sided centre half if Arne Slot decides I want to roam in full back. And then if that's the case, you do keep Tsimikas anyway, as in roaming up and down that wing, because he can do that in Andy Robertson's stead. But I doubt that that's going to be the case, to be honest. And I do think that the left-sided centre half is going to get games at left back. So we'll move on to the midfield. The big formation chat is upon us. Is it 4-2-3-1? Is it 4-3-3? The squad would dictate you have to go 4-3-3, judging by the number of midfielders we've got. But Arne Slot plays 4-2-3-1. Steve, looking at the midfielders, and I'll just list 10 of them for you. Bajcetic, Endo, McAllister, Szoboszlai, Elliott, Jones. I've thrown Gakpo in there. I've thrown Trent in there. Gravenberch and Carvalho. And I'll also throw in an added 3 to make that 13. McConnell, Morton and Clark makes it 13 midfielders. Wow. That is a hell of a lot of players. One of them might be able to do the 6 role on their own, although I think, judging by the eyes, none of you believe that we have the player in the squad who can play a lone 6. No one?
I alluded to it before, didn't I, when I said that I think there might be an opportunity to do your marquee signing elsewhere. And I genuinely believe if you've got aspirations to take titles off Manchester City, you've got to go and match a Rodri, or you've got to go and match a Declan Rice in terms of who sits at the base of your midfield and who does a job and who does it properly. The bigger problem is, who does that person look like? Because they're the two standout candidates, and unfortunately they play for our rivals. I'm sure there's other players in world football we could get in, but they're not those two guys, and those two guys make a world of difference to those two teams when they're in them. When they're not in them, they don't look remotely the same team. So if it's a 6 or a base of your midfield type player, whatever tag you want to call it, if you're going to go and spend 50, 60, 70, 80 million, whatever it is, that for me is where you make your statement to the rest of the league that we're going to go and buy a world-class operative in that position, because Endo is great, but Endo is not the future of Liverpool Football Club, and Endo will not, unfortunately, will not win you a title for me. and we've got to buy that player that gives us that quantum leap in our midfield in terms of, right, we're as good as they are, because at times last season, and this goes back to your formation point before about it has to be 4-3-3. We tried 4-3-3 with forward-thinking players in recovery positions. Dominic Szoboszlai was the leading midfielder in the Premier League for recoveries. He played wide for Leipzig in an offensive position. We've used his physical attributes to recover the ball when Trent's not been there or Bradley's bombed on. He's been recovered down that right hand side. Why don't we? Difficult to do. We should start using players who've got specialist attributes in areas that bring out those specialist attributes. They've not seen anything like the best of Dominic Szoboszlai. Start of the season when we played McAllister as a 6. He first 2 months of the season we were all raving about him because how technically good he was. And then everybody, to a man from a Liverpool fan, will say, but did we see enough out of him? And I don't necessarily rest that at his door, the responsibility for that. So the formation will be really, really key. But if we're going to go and make a marquee signing that transforms us into a team that is there on the last day of the season and doesn't blow up 6-7 weeks out, then a specialist defensive midfielder is where you spend your transfer budget for me.
Now, would that be the case for you? Even if he went with his tried and trusted 4-2-3-1.
Yes, because that person would be the leader in a double pivot. So you go back to Brighton. Caicedo, McAllister was a brilliant double pivot. Mm-hmm. So you bring in somebody that is capable of doing that role, as good as, if not better, and then you put McAllister alongside him, and then you've got your width. You've got your expansive player who can go on and push on and do a little bit more, because you've got two guys there whose first job is, when it breaks down, right, where am I? Am I in the right position? Am I in a recovery position? Can I control the game for me? Could you imagine having Caicedo? Would have been brilliant for Liverpool. Him and McAllister just picked up from Brighton, dropped straight into the Liverpool midfield. They'd have just kept the ball. We've been too easy to play through for 2 years in terms of our midfield, and as a result of it, our defence for me picks up an awful lot of criticism that sometimes is warranted and sometimes is because you can't deal with runners, and you can play through Liverpool, or you have been able to. So there's another thing for Slot to sort out.
So, Chloe, for you then, the 13 players that I've just mentioned, from those 13, is there a 3 that you feel comfortable with going into next season, or do you need a signing in that midfield as well?
No, I need a DM, a world-class DM.
It's mad that we've got 30 midfielders and no one wants 3 of them to play at once.
Look,
it's mad.
Wataru was sound last season for the majority of the season, but once again, you're competing with Manchester City, who've got 115 breaches against their name and who've got the best DM in the world. You've got Declan Rice, who's just decided that he'll do everything for Arsenal because he's the soul of that Arsenal team now. They're 2 players that have elevated those 2 teams, and for everything that Steve's just said, I need a world-class DM. I need someone who's going to stop it at the source, because once again, Liverpool have been too easy to play through, and that doesn't stop. McAllister is unbelievable. I need him to be an 8 though, because he's been unbelievable as an 8, or in a double pivot like he did with Brighton. And what that does is, when you've got that specialist DM in a double pivot, it gives license for McAllister to actually, if we do need an extra man up the pitch, it gives him license to go and do that, because you can tactically change in game. If this 4-2-3-1 isn't working for you, well, let's go to the 4-3-3, and that DM, that central DM, is world class, that he can do it on his own as well. So it gives Liverpool just more avenues to play through. If they need to change tactically in game, they can do that. And look, you put Sobbo and you put McAllister as either the 10 or the other DM next to your actual out-and-out DM, and I think it improves both of them because it gives them more license. They're 2 players that their first thought isn't what's behind me, what do I need to track, where do I need to stand here in terms of a counter-attack. It's, well, I'm actually going to stand off this player, because if one of our lads wins the ball, I've got to run on him there. And you can't do that in a system where you don't have an out-and-out unbelievable DM. And like I said, Wataru Endo came in and he did his job for how much he was. he was great for how much he was. But if you want to compete with Manchester City and Arsenal, you've got to go and match them in those areas, and that is the biggest area.
There's no one. I mean, I must admit, and I know that there's folly to this idea as well. But like, I look at it and think Pacetic is a fucking brilliant midfielder, and I know he's got his injury issues, but I think him as part of a double pivot could save us 100 million quid.
It could.
That's how I see it.
I really
It's
do.
a job for him right now to go into next season and say, go and sit low, because part
it
of
wasn't
this,
when Fabinho was playing well and he was fucking in there
part
doing
of
his
this
job
on his own.
Part of getting this double pivot right tells me that you leave Trent at right back, because if you've got a good double pivot, when it breaks down and Trent's gone inverted or gone on beyond that midfield, that person's got enough about them to go and sit in that hole and do it properly. So if you're playing with a double pivot, for me, you leave Trent where he is. Because you were 100% correct before. The best Liverpool modern era team had Trent at right back, where he could just unlock everything with no one behind him, no pressure from behind him. And that point about whilst he's very good, he doesn't want to be playing with his back to the opposition's goal and laying the ball back into centre half, so they can smash one into the corners and try and use Darwin's pace. So Pacetic is great, really good. We've lost a year in terms of his development for me. And that's a big year in terms of his development, and we're going to go into a change potentially in formation. And I just he's one for the future, 100%. He's so young, Chris. We could afford to do something with him where he rotates through that double pivot for the next 2 or 3 years before making it his own. That's just how I see him.
I just think there's so much to do in the squad, and that's why I keep hammering home the 13 midfielders thing.
Yeah. It's mad,
we've got a lot of midfielders, and although they don't seem perfect, Pacetic is the one where I do think he's £100 million player in 3-4 years time. You've got to give him that room to grow as well, Dan.
Yeah, and I think I agree with your point. I think him and McAllister as a double pivot feels like the most natural fit to me right now. I think those who can both dictate a game of football and sort of play it at their own rhythm, play it at their own pace, and just, like I say, just control proceedings from there. And that's kind of where I'm at with it. As much as I agree with both the guys' points.
Yeah, I don't disagree either.
No,
it's a money thing for me.
Well, yeah, that
it's £100 million of a player that doesn't really exist.
Well, that is definitely part of this conversation. And whilst I think if we were going to sort of persist with the 4-3-3, I think we'd have to go out and sign an upgrade on Wataru Endo. I don't think we're going to, personally. And also, your point about just the sheer amount of midfielders is a very fair one. And I think if we were going 4-3-3, I think we would need someone with that sort of that sixth sense and that first instinct of defending and knowing where to be and how to mop up. And Fabinho at his peak was exceptional at it, wasn't he? He was very much in the conversation, the same bracket as Rodri and Declan Rice. Unfortunately, didn't last as long as we would have liked, but you would need that. But I don't see us playing that way. I can't envisage a world. Every single person I've spoken to who knows Arne Slot far better than we all do as of now says he's going to play 4-2-3-1. The 4-3-3 never really gets a mention. So I would be staggered if he came in and played 4-3-3. Just don't see it. But if he did, definitely the DM. If he doesn't, I think Szoboszlai could do it. It's all McAllister. I think McAllister's in, isn't he? I think we're all pretty much on board with that. It's who plays alongside him. And I think Pacetic, like I say, Gravenberch possibly, Szoboszlai possibly. Weirdly enough, the person I see losing out most of all in this midfield conversation is Wataru Endo, because I think him in a double pivot, I just don't see how that fits. Personally,
yeah,
I can't.
Funny, isn't it?
I just can't see that in any world. I think obviously the 10 becomes interesting, which we move on to, but yeah, I can see a 4-2-3-1, and I therefore can't. And also, you just said it there. Like, how many midfielders do we need? We'll probably lose a couple of them to loan, like Bobby Clark, James McConnell, possibly. I don't know about Tyler Morton's future either. But you don't need to sign another midfielder.
If Stefan Pacetic hadn't lost a year, absolutely, I'd be saying that. But
he did.
We saw what happened.
He did. Simple.
We saw what happened when he had to play that many games as a youngster, and he's now been out pretty much an entire season. He came back the other day and looked extremely rusty, as you would expect. Yeah. And for me, I don't know whether I'd feel 100% comfortable to say we're in a title race next season if I've got to start with Stefan Pacetic, who's missed an entire year of football and still needs to get to grips with getting back into it. That Fabinho, who was one of the best DMs I've seen play for Liverpool, took him 3 to 6 months to get to his best in this Liverpool side. And Stefan Pacetic just went through a big injury as being out for a year. and I'm not sure you can put that amount of pressure on a young lad who's coming back from injury, because I would need him to play as many games as possible.
I take that point if we didn't have another 10 midfielders to pick from.
Exactly, it doesn't need to be him.
I'm not
That's
sure
the thing, isn't
the
it?
rest are great in that position, but yeah.
You can reduce that 13 instantly. You can almost half it with the loans and what have you.
I think it's more like a 9. Personally, I would say, and that's like I say, loans taken into account, and probably a couple being far more suited to the 10 than they are one of the 8 roles. It's interesting to see how the double pivot looks. Obviously, we have defensive issues. Jurgen Klopp, we've all made the point, referenced it a few weeks ago. Yeah, Arne Slot's going to have to sort that, but I don't know whether it's a double pivot is in 2 6s or 2 8s more. It feels like 2 8s more to me. With obviously,
because I think Jones is a genuine option.
You think he's a candidate for that?
I do, yeah. I'm not sure. I know people I've spoken to like Gravenberch in it, but I don't really like Gravenberch in it myself. Like,
he needs to be more physical in that position.
Definitely.
Could you not make a case
like McAllister and Trent? Whoa, okay. There's an attacking double pivot.
Yeah.
If you want possession, there's 2 lads who can provide possession for you.
I still think it's easy to get through our team though with those 2.
It might be, but it depends what profile of defender you pick with them.
Could
you know what I mean? Because at least then you haven't got Trent not being in his right back position when he's in midfield, for example. Go on.
Could you not take your 13 names, look at your midfield and go, right, there's 2 positions in front of the back 4, and then there's 3 attacking positions in front of that. Let's quantify who sits in where, and then suddenly you're not trying to find 13 players into a double pivot. You've got seven who would play advanced to the double pivot, and 5 or 6 prior to loans that you could say, like Tyler Morton, Curtis Jones, Trent maybe, Endo. You're starting to think of names who would do the defensive role. Trent as a orchestrator of play could do it from there. I still think he's a right back for me personally.
Well, I think if you do it like that, okay, Bajcetic, Endo, McAllister,
Jones.
Potentially Szoboszlai, Jones.
See, I
think
Sobbo's in the front 3.
Okay, this is really interesting. I've not actually had this conversation. Does anyone think he's a guy who threads passes through into the penalty area?
No.
Does anyone? What do you think of when you think of a number 10? Is that the job that you think they do?
He's a runner at you though. He's a pick the ball up and destroy you when he's running at you. So
isn't that
right side?
Isn't that start deep, run forwards?
I've got that as deeper personally with Szoboszlai. I haven't.
Yeah. It's interesting this though, because when I think of a number 10, I think of David Silva.
Phil Foden right now.
Yeah, Phil Foden could do it. Yeah, I think of Odegaard. I think of Harvey Elliott. I don't think of Szoboszlai. He just doesn't fit what I think of a silky, sexy sort of little ball through. Kevin De Bruyne, brilliant pass. He is very much, I'm going to get to the end of the area, I'm going to Gerrard you. I'm going to smash this ball into the top bin. And there's nothing wrong with that either. Steven Gerrard might be the best number 10 that's ever played for Liverpool Football Club, especially in that season with Fernando Torres. But just what I think of a number 10 isn't actually Szoboszlai.
I think you could do both, is the thing. I think all we've seen from him is that number 8. So I don't actually know what he looks like in that position. What I do know is him in and around the area is excellent. I'd also, I don't want him to be a right winger, but if we're talking about versatility, we do not have a backup right winger if it's not Ben Doak.
Absolutely, for me, Szoboszlai is a replacement for Salah in a 4-3-3.
See, I don't like that idea in the future. I'm not going to lie to you, but what I'm saying is for next season he could rotate with Salah. I wouldn't like to see him as a right winger in the next 3 years. I would absolutely. I don't think he has it. There's something about it that I don't like.
That's where he's played before he joined us, mate.
I know, but
we turned him into this midfielder, and he basically was affected by Trent's injury and lack of form. He was affected by Salah's injury and lack of form. When Bradley went past him to the byline to pull it back, he's then a makeshift break glass right back.
Yeah.
That's absolutely not getting the best out of a player.
No, we
it's a
haven't got the best out of him.
player. So the sample size in terms of giving him an opportunity to showcase what he can do has been affected by a stubbornness to stick in a 4-3-3 in principle that's the same as Fabinho, Henderson and Wijnaldum, and asking a forward-thinking guy to do a job that isn't a forward-thinking guy's job.
It's interesting though, but I think most pushback on this will because he's right-footed.
Yeah, 100%.
Because honestly, you can't have a conversation with anyone under the age of 25 about a right-footed player playing on the right-hand side. You just can't. It's all I knew growing up. It just for some reason, it's the inverted thing. It's completely changed. It is. It goes back to that, and no one does it anymore, and it's mental. Like, but I think, and I've always said this, a right footer for me can play on the right hand side if you've got a number 9 that goes that way and it wants to score goals. If they're doing that, and not for me. I'd rather have the left footer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I don't know whether Szoboszlai would be it for me.
I think he can do all 3 roles. I really do. What I would say is from what I remember of him at RB Leipzig and why I was so excited was his advanced play. So I'd like to see him in that role. Doesn't mean we have to stick with it. We're all just testing it out. And look, if he is better at dragging the ball up the pitch like we have seen, and carrying it 20 yards and taking a shot, then absolutely can do that number 8 role. My only thinking is him and Maka doing it together. There's just something about it where I just don't think either of them are defensive enough for me, and that's the only thing. Look, they might actually be, and that's when they're both partnered in that same position together, it might be enough. But there's just something about it with 2 attacking minded players being in that role, and that is what Arne Slot plays, so that's fine, but in my head it worries me a slight bit.
Yeah, no, I can totally understand it. So in terms of the 10 position, I'll come to you, Dan. Who are the names that you're considering?
I can't really get Harvey Elliott out of my head, to be honest with you. And
Fabio Carvalho? Yeah.
Fabio Carvalho massively comes to this conversation. I was just thinking, actually, while we were talking, then, like, who's the most two-footed out of all of these players? Because that's what I'd like from a 10 in an ideal world. I think that probably is Carvalho, to be honest. Obviously, a role he's played.
Bring Lallana back after his
obviously a role he's played predominantly during his spell at Hull. He's very successful loan spell at Hull as well, it's got to be said. Struggled at Leipzig, obviously, first part of the season, but it's an interesting one. Obviously, signed by Jurgen Klopp after courting him for 6 odd months' worth, and then never really felt like he had a role or a home in the formation that we played. Just didn't suit him by any stretch of imagination. I think playing anyone like that in the 10 with someone like Szoboszlai and McAllister will definitely show that we mean business in terms of we're going to be very attack minded and we don't fight in 5-5, like we don't really care what you throw at us. Look at all the boss players we've got. But in terms of 10, I don't know about Gravenberch. I don't know about Szoboszlai either. So I can't look away from it. I think Harvey Elliott is probably my go-to right now, personally. I think he'd be the one. If we were starting the season tomorrow, I think it'd be him. But the Carvalho factor is a fascinating one.
Yeah.
What about you, Chloe? Because it seems like we've got me and Dan who are very one way and you and Ste are the other at the moment.
Look, I might just be haunted at the fact that we conceded over 20-something, nearly 30 times first last season. And when you're doing that, you're not going to win a title. Defences win you titles. It's that simple. If you can get a 1-0 win here and there, it's much easier than having to come back from behind time and time again. Your luck runs out. We saw that happen. So maybe I'm just playing with the idea of that. I really, really want to see more of Harvey Elliott. I think, once again, he was one of the stars of last season. Every single time he was on that pitch, he affected the play. Look at his stats. Like that's coming from a lad who was playing a number 8, but also right wing, where I don't think he's suited that at all. So him being in the middle of the park and having much more influence, being centre of the goal, and reverse passes into Salah, off the shoulder to Nunes. Sorry, I'd really like to see him in that area. I think he's good in really tight spaces, which means that's why he's perfect for that number 10 role. And I just would like to see the best out of him. As for Fabio Carvalho, I think we need to keep him and have a look at him. I really do, because like you said there, he's had a successful period at Hull. When he first came in, he obviously got that goal against Newcastle. He starts at Goodison away with Harvey Elliott, so clearly he was thought of, and something just went wrong a little bit for him. He played in the number 8 role and then he played on the wing. None of them suit him. No. He then went to Leipzig and also played off the wing. Doesn't suit him. He's now gone to a team where his position and what he's suited for, he's playing, and he's done really good for them. So I'd like to see him get a look in just in pre-season, see what he's about, because the thing about, once again, Harvey Elliott I'm going to go on to is that he's still young, so I'm not expecting Harvey Elliott to start every game here. I'm expecting him to have an influential part in Liverpool's season, but if I was to say he's me out and out number 10, I couldn't say that just because he's so young, and I'd like to see other players interchange with him, and those two being decent in that position. I'd just like to see how it goes in pre-season. You never know. And I don't know whether Fabio Carvalho is up to Premier League standard. I don't. He might just not be. But I'd at least like to see it in pre-season. As for the other players that we've mentioned, obviously, I'd like to see a little bit of Szoboszlai in there. But aside from that, look, maybe a Cody Gakpo in a number 10. Like, people aren't going to like that probably, but I wouldn't mind seeing what that's all about as well. I love Diogo Jota as well. He's 2-footed, but he's more me focal point.
Not close enough to goal, is he?
No.
In the 10, I don't
but
think.
he, you know, sometimes he influences the play. I go back to that Arsenal game in the FA Cup where he came on and it was Liverpool changed because he read the game and he dropped short and he'd do 1-2s and he actually wasn't involved in the goals further up the pitch, but because he'd recognised the play and where he needs to be, he dropped into those spaces. But yet there's enough options for us there. Maybe too many, which isn't great.
That's the problem, isn't it? Yeah, and Ste, I'll come on to you then. Like, the number 10 position, none of us mentioned McAllister.
I know.
So
I think he might actually be the one who fits best what my image of a number 10 can look like.
He's in my double pivot, and I've got Harvey Elliott in the 10, starting the season in the 10, because once the ball under pressure, his first touch. Do you remember we used to sit there and groan because Henderson had 4 touches before he get the ball out of his feet and release someone? Elliott does it in 2. So the first touch is to get his body and the ball into shape where he can manipulate it, and his second touch is very often to look forward. The goal he scores, the absolute worldie, is got number 10 written all over it in terms of position on the field of play and what you would expect. He's a really, really, and I love intelligent footballers, and he's a really, really intelligent footballer. So what he lacks in pace, Slot's a transition manager, so we will break from front to back, back to front even as quickly as we possibly can, and you can't really include Harvey in that in terms of.
Sorry, what you just described was Liverpool last season breaking front to back.
That's what Slot does. That much is, you know, you've spoken to a few people, and they are a transition-based formations. Him getting the ball and releasing those guys who are making them pin your ears back and go for it, runs down the flanks, and centrally, Harvey Elliott's probably one of your better men to get a bit of space and use the ball well to pick them out. So I agree with both you two. I see Elliott as sort of in a driving seat for that role, because I see McAllister in the double pivot with whoever that might look like. And then Carvalho coming in and doing bits and pieces and earning the opportunity to have more game time, because, you know, he hasn't done it yet, has he? He's done it in the Championship for a side that, you know, were okay, weren't they?
Yeah, and he just missed out in the playoffs, to be fair. So, he was a big part of why he went up the table as well, to be fair to him.
Midfielders then, DM.
2
midfielders.
Oh, signing one?
Yeah.
Oh, no, sorry, not signing anyone. No.
Not signing anyone.
No, sorry. I thought you meant it's in the double pivot. No, not signing anyone.
If I was in charge, I wouldn't be signing anyone.
Okay.
But I'm not, and it's fancy footy, so I want a better DM.
Yeah.
I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, I think football manager stuff we'd all be doing a little bit, wouldn't we? Yeah, we'd all be probably saying...
I just don't see that with that many midfielders you need to spend that 100 million on someone.
What I will say, actually, just on this, while we're on the topic...
I would.
If there was to be a conversation with Endo, and this sounds extremely harsh, I almost feel sorry for myself saying it, but whereby you go to him and say, listen, like, thanks so much for last season, like, you were boss, you helped us out, we needed you, you come in, you did a job for us, thanks for everything, going back and play in the Bundesliga for Stuttgart again. You know, honestly, that again, I apologise if you're watching with Savu, but like, if you were to have that conversation and then you were to sign a 22-year-old, a 21-year-old,
how would you do it?
DM,
the end of the line.
No. If you were to sign someone for like 30-40 million, not extreme, because I don't think you need the extreme, you know, your game change, your transformative signing, because again, I don't think we're going to play that way. But if there was a world whereby you could have that conversation and then sign an up and coming one around that sort of price range, then yeah, I would be doing that.
Yeah, that's it. If the look, we've just mentioned we both want a DM there, I'm not sure there is one. Like, I'm not sure there's one good enough out there. So if it's not perfect, don't go for them. That's what I will say. It has
would
to
you
be
keep
right.
Taro Endo? Because otherwise you're going to have like, we're going to be 14, aren't we?
No, I wouldn't.
You wouldn't keep Endo?
I'd let him go. You've got Varela and Redondo, who's
and Edison as well, Atalanta. There are names.
And they're 40-50 million.
It's so harsh. I feel so bad, honestly. I don't know why. I don't know the
handful of times. Why does that make him 40 to 50 mil in my head?
That's just...
That's about going
conversation.
Going
okay. Well,
what about you, Chris? Can I ask you that question? Taro Endo.
Would I get rid of him?
If I want somebody else to say
in, yeah? Sounds.
If we
get
don't
a better DM in.
If
you should always look to upgrade your players, shouldn't you?
And that's not...
But this is a big window, and we've got a goalkeeper, a left-sided centre-back, a DM. We're only 3 units in.
Can we caveat it has to be an upgrade on DM?
Yes.
Because I don't just want to sign one.
No, yeah.
Because that feels...
That's what I mean. I'm fine with not spending the money on a new DM if there is no one available who fits us. I think they have to be a really top level.
And they have to be able to play a double pivot.
Yeah, there's no point in bringing in a lad who's 50 mil but doesn't really upgrade your team.
I'm not sure it is a destroyer in this case. Because your destroyer feels like one who does play on his own.
Again.
Like Ugarte from PSG or something like that.
Yeah, because they do play as a
solid.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's what the market.
It's got to be a footballer who likes to go and win the ball.
He is a footballer, Paulinho, and he's a good player.
Oh, he's too old for me,
29.
3 years ago, absolutely.
For the price tag Fulham, you don't go near that, do you? Okay, anyway, sorry.
Okay, so we're going to move on to the forwards. Salah's contract is the big one, Steve.
Yeah.
Would you be offering him an improved deal?
I don't think he'll get an improved deal. I think he'll get an extension. I can't see him going up above and beyond the 350 that he's rumoured to be on. Obviously, that's just...
Does Mbappe's salary make this even harder? He's on like 58 million a year.
Just give him 100 million quid to sign on as well.
Yeah, 58 million a year for 5 years plus 100 million signing on fee.
No, because that's fantasy football, isn't it? 2 years ago they were or 2.5 years ago.
How did they make so much money, Steve?
They were chief protagonists for a European Super League because they had no money, and now they're buying everybody. So Real Madrid's finances are a misnomer that no one will ever understand and shouldn't try. You should do your head in trying to do it. So
wild. So okay, Salah, improved deal? No, I'm the same as you. I think he's got to accept terms for another year.
Yeah.
I just don't see that you go bigger, and I don't see Michael Edwards.
I see him leaving for free at the end of next season, mate.
I can't do that.
No, you've got to get money.
I'd sell him now, or he agrees to the deal, and it's that simple. If he doesn't agree to the same terms, you're off.
You won't get the same terms, you'll get less.
I think we're going to do what Steve just said, which I cannot get my head around.
No, Liverpool can't do that.
But they might.
They can't.
But I think they're going to.
Absolute outrageous.
Especially with our model. And listen, people are going to despise the fact that I'm about to bring up sell to buy, but that is how Liverpool have operated for so long. And we've
get the best years out of them and then you sell them.
We've often criticised the fact that we haven't been very good at that in recent times, and not selling, cashing in on, however you want to put it, Mohamed Salah at this juncture and allowing him to leave for free in 12 months' time is the opposite of what FSG have sort of prided themselves on since arriving at Liverpool Football Club, and it feels crazy to me, especially when there is Saudi money in and around the conversation for Mohamed Salah, because I don't care what people say, I might have used inflated figures in the past, but you could still get 80-90 million from Mohamed Salah without a shadow of a doubt this summer from Saudi Arabia. And if it's that or losing for free, if you can't get him to agree to the same terms or whatever it may be on a year extension, then for me, and this sounds so bad because again, I've no doubt in my mind that he will be equally as talismanic, equally as influential next season that he was this year. I actually have hope that he'll get back to something like his best, like earlier on the season, as opposed to how he ended it. However, from a purely business point of view, and I don't like to talk about this when it comes to football, but you've got to do something. You can't just allow him to walk away for free. That feels crazy to me.
It's stupid. It's mind-bogglingly stupid. And this is the problem. This is almost, when people are listening to this who don't like FSG, will be thinking, well, you're backing them up. No, I understand how they run their business, which is unfortunate. But I do, and Dan does, and you do as well. We all understand how they want to run it, and this doesn't feel like them making a
well, Jurgen spoke to us about it,
decision.
didn't he? Jurgen spoke. He said we did it the right way, and then listen, I'm quoting him there quite literally, but that he understood that, and he understood the parameters, and I'm sure Arne Slot will be likewise. So that's how we run. That's how we have run. It's been successful as well down the years. So again, I'll come back to it. We've done it with Gini Wijnaldum. I'm aware of that, but we were never talking about an 80, 90, £100 million asset there with Gini. To do it with Mohamed Salah is far removed from what Liverpool have been about in recent times.
Also, even if I don't agree with that model or something, it still feels extremely stupid. Like,
yeah, it does actually. It's a good point.
Regardless of model,
regardless of what you think is the correct model or not, to lose Mohamed Salah for free next season when you could get 80 to 100 mil now seems ludicrous.
He holds all the cards because either whether it be this summer or the following summer, You've got a Muslim guy going to play in Saudi Arabia. He will be the biggest sports person on the planet, bar nobody, whenever he goes there. And money, sky's the limit. Whatever he earns now, you can double that, quadruple it, whatever you want. It's limitless. So in his regard, at some point, that is going to happen. So now what he's basically saying is, over to you. If you want me to stay, show your hand. What are you going to do? They're not going to turn around and say, there's a 2-year extension with an extra 50 grand a week, because that's just not what Michael Edwards does, is it? We talk about understanding the model and how it works. They might say to him, there's a 12-month extension on the same figures, with a view to this time next summer being another conversation. That would be the sensible thing to do. But the player might turn around and say, that's not good enough. I want 2 years. And Michael Edwards, we know Michael Edwards' views on 30-somethings getting extended contracts. So all of the cards and all of the power is in Mo Salah's hands for me right now. He will decide how this plays out.
What I will say just on that as well, I can see a 2-year extension being the outcome of this, potentially in and around the same term. That's how I kind of hope and believe it might go.
Nice. So to 2027, is that?
Yeah. Well, also, on top of that as well, I don't think Mohamed Salah, and I could be completely off, so forgive me, I don't think he's ready nor wants to go to Saudi Pro League yet. I don't think the football's quite at where he believes he is right now. I think if he was going to move, I think obviously the Real Madrid one's now completely off the table because of Kylian Mbappe, but maybe a PSG comes into the equation, having lost Kylian Mbappe, who knows? I don't see him leaving Europe and the Champions League level of football just yet, so I think it's that's
just lost Angel Di Maria as well, haven't they, PSG?
That clouds the conversation as well, for me, who's at Benfica.
Was he at
the year
Benfica?
before, yeah. But that clouds the conversation even more so, I would say, because again, I don't think if the lure of Saudi Arabia was there from a Liverpool point of view, I don't think it's there from Mohamed Salah point of view right now, so it's even more complicated.
Mohamed Salah can play till he's 40-something in that league. He'll go there and he won't even have to run. Like, you know, when we brought him on in the Europa League, and it was like he was just having a friendly against some League 2 side. Like, that is genuinely what he can do in Saudi Arabia. He doesn't need to go right now. At the age of 37, 38, he could still go there. He could do a Ronaldo and just go there 37, 38 and spend the next 3 years there and earn all the money in the world. But if I was Liverpool, I'd be giving him a deal of, you either stay here and you accept the same terms, or you're off. Because quite frankly, I'm so sorry, but I'm looking at the business side.
I just think it's mad, isn't it?
I'm not sure you can win a league without Mohamed Salah because of his numbers.
I also think there's a little bit in all of this, because he'll be aware of these conversations, not necessarily the way
he'll want trophies though.
He will want
trophies that matter.
But I think there'll be a little bit of writing him off at your peril about all of this, because he'll be aware of all the noise that surrounded him the back end of the season, particularly when you take into account what happened at West Ham. He will be seeing all this, hearing all this, and they'll be saying, okay, then just watch. And I think that's quite exciting from a Liverpool point of view, personally.
Yeah, but then, like, the thing is, as Steve says, it's in Salah's hands. We've got to tie something. If he says no to a contract extension this summer, what the fuck do Liverpool do?
Sell him.
Yeah,
they've got to sell him, right? They've got to.
Yeah.
This summer.
Yeah, I think so. That's what I thought.
And I think the previous contract negotiations, where it was will he or won't he, he very much was in charge of that scenario as well. This is probably more heightened because of the age he is and the offers that are on the table now. And he's ambassadorial. He likes to do things for his country. So imagine the money he could plough back into the infrastructure of where he was brought up and stuff, like him and Sadio Mane do. They do spend their money on the less fortunate people for good causes. Yeah. The world's his oyster in terms of that, as and when he decides to go to Saudi, which I think is a case of if not, when, not if.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. It's just, hopefully it's not this season. Hopefully he does sign a deal at least an extra year, but you're just putting off the conversations for one more year, so 2 makes perfect sense to me. In terms of the attackers then, the never-ending Núñez debate, Chloe. We've had 2 full seasons of Darwin Núñez right now.
Yeah.
Is he good enough? To quote you, back at you, can you win a league with Núñez up front?
Oh, yeah. If Salah's there alongside him, maybe. If he's your number one, if Salah leaves, no. Winning a title with Darwin Núñez as your main goal scorer, because he doesn't score as many goals as.
But is the point of Darwin Núñez to be our main goal scorer, whether he's with Salah or not?
Yes, probably for the money, absolutely. I'd give Darwin Núñez one more season, and that is where I'd be on it. And I don't like saying it because I know the amount of people who are going to hate me for it, but it's where I stand. I need him. Look, he's not had a bad season in terms of numbers. He's actually up there, you know what I mean? But in terms of how many chances that lad misses, it's absolutely ludicrous. The weight that could have been lifted off Liverpool at certain times this season, if he would have just put it in the back of the net, would have made a massive difference to us. I'd give him another season. I think there's just so much talent there. And I'm really hoping that Arne Slot comes in and just calms him a little bit. I don't know what's going on with his social media still. Obviously, he still took Liverpool off all of that. But he's changed his main photo to his kids and him in the Liverpool shirt from the final day of the season. So, yes, I would keep him. I'd give him another season and hope that Arne Slot comes in and somehow just backs him more than ever before, because he really is a confidence player. Hopefully we can get a sports psychiatrist to speak to him, and I think that was something that was happening. If we could get that in terms of just calming him down in front of goal, because it feels like he does everything right. Like the Everton game at Goodison, looks at where he needs to put the ball and still puts the ball right at the fucking goalkeeper. I don't know how he possibly does it, but he does it. So yes, it's one where the fact that I adore the man is really helping him, but there's only so many times I can sing Núñez after you miss chances.
Yeah, I'm kind of done myself.
Oh really?
Yeah.
What are you?
He's
so
on the Núñez bandwagon. Don't even lie down.
I'm Núñez in 100%, and I think Arne Slot will relish the prospect to work with him. I think he'll see a player there, and I think he'll give him more than ample opportunity to prove it. Arne Slot's track record of working with similar ilk strikers is really impressive too. He got the best out of Santiago Jimenez at Feyenoord, so I think he will look at Darwin Núñez and all the attributes he does have and go, yeah, sound, let's see what we can do here. And the biggest problem with Darwin Núñez is absolutely his composure, his lack thereof. And I mentioned earlier on that sixth sense for sort of defending and being that guy to sort of get in the way and make sure that no problems happened from a defensive standpoint. Darwin Núñez lacks a sixth sense of scoring goal. And he doesn't have that sort of predatory instincts that we sort of associate with Diogo Jota, Robbie Fowler of years gone by. And
or just Darwin Núñez from that one season before he joined us.
Before he arrived, yeah, and that game at Anfield, of course. But the biggest issue with that, of course, is the fact that you can't really teach that. Like, you can't coach that. That's the one thing you cannot really do. So that's a major issue, I would say. However, having said all of that, he possesses everything. He possesses absolutely everything it takes in terms of his attributes, in terms of his physicality, in terms of his skill set, really, to be an elite level striker. So, yeah, I'm okay with him. I'd be keeping him around. I definitely wouldn't be cashing in on him. I know a lot of people would think the opposite of that, but I think
don't know how much cash you get for him, if I'm being dead honest.
If you wanted him to be sort of your 40 goal a season man, probably not. We might need a little bit more help from the wide areas and even in behind him as well if we are going to be operating with a number 10. But yeah, I wouldn't be saying goodbye to Darwin just yet.
Yeah, I think, listen, playing fantasy football, I would. If it was Football Manager, I'd change him, no problem. But you're constructing a football side and you've got to use the players at your disposal. So Darwin makes perfect sense to stick around and have a go with the new manager. I think a number 10 could help him as well. Someone that he can link up with brilliantly. You get that sort of understanding of playing with week in, week out. A fella who, in Harvey Elliott maybe, who knows exactly what he wants to move. But you need to work on him. It's not just his finishing that needs work. His timing of the run needs fucking more work.
The new offside rule could help him as well, to be honest.
It could do, but you've got to speak to him about it.
Yeah.
Like, you really do. And you've got to start speaking to the team around him and saying, look, Darwin wants it early. All the time he wants the fucking ball early because he's going to go. So is it better to change one man and tell him when to go, or change 5 men behind? The answer is you've got to speak to Darwin. Tell him you can't just have it early all the fucking time, mate. You've got to time your runs. You've got to look across the line. He's nearly 24. He's 25 years old. Why can't he time a run? Like, it's insane. For a lad who's as talented as he is the most frustrating player I've ever watched at Liverpool Football Club. He really is. He frustrates me more than anybody. but he's got the talent there as well. You can see that he possesses everything. He can beat a man. He works incredibly hard. You know he can finish at times, which is part of why he's so frustrating, isn't it, Steve? But like, I think Slot will relish the chance to work with him because of everything that he does provide and work on what he's not doing well.
In a 4-2-3-1, football intelligence is everything. If you're that focal point at the top, and that's what he doesn't have. And that's why you're talking about potentially looking at 5 players being told to change the way they feed him to cater for the clear attributes he's got. You're both right, quick, strong, beat a man, great, lots of things, but just can't lead the line. I've been saying for months, for me, it was always better. You talk about that season before he came to Liverpool. You mentioned the game at Anfield, played off the left, absolutely devastated off the left. That formation is probably, for me, the worst formation that we could set up to help Darwin Núñez become a prolific goal scorer, because there's so much emphasis on that focal point at the front being the tip of it. Just does not have that football intelligence to play that role. You've got to be super intelligent, like if Bobby Firmino had pace, that's the perfect striker for that role, because he has that intelligence. Gakpo's got enough football intelligence to do that, but wants to come too deep, so you've then got to re-educate him to stay higher and further forward. It's really difficult. I think in the formation we're talking about, there are big question marks over Diaz and Núñez in terms of how they fit in, and more importantly for Núñez is I can never see him at the front of that formation. Just wouldn't work for me.
Is it bad to say that if I was to choose between selling one of those two, it'd be Diaz? For the main reason of he's just older. That's the only...
And his dad's trying to sell him.
Yeah. I'll say that. But like...
Also, I think
it's fine.
I'm frustrated with Núñez, but
the thing that I'm getting annoyed at when people are talking about Darwin is this. But what if he goes good elsewhere? I get that, but it doesn't make any fucking sense. You don't keep someone who's shit
on
a what if.
No, I agree with that. I agree. But again, I come back to it. I actually think if Klopp was still around as Liverpool manager, I think the question around Darwin Núñez would be slightly different.
Definitely.
Because I think we've seen him under Jurgen Klopp. We know what that's all about now. But I think a new manager, fresh ideas, fresh formations. And whilst I agree with your point about he's not ideally suited to the role, I just, again, from what I've been told, the conversations I've had, I just think there's something to the way Arne Slot likes to look at his centre forward, and he likes him to play. I think there's a lot of Darwin Núñez in about that. And really interesting conversation I had a few weeks ago with a guy who worked with Arne Slot as his opposition analyst when he was at Alkmaar. He told me that the main thing that Slot's sort of like obsession, if you like, is with deep runs from his strikers, and that comes back to what we're saying about him being offside all the time. If he can just hone down on that a little bit and get him to be a bit more intelligent with his movement and all that sort of stuff, then who knows?
And
listen,
that can be trained.
Of course, again, if we're still having this conversation, 12 months' time, then yeah, it's a no-brainer, isn't it? If he hasn't improved on the key areas we're talking about, if he's still getting the same frustrations, he's still missing the same amount of big chances and all that sort of stuff, different conversation altogether. But right now, with a new manager, with new ideas, with potentially a couple of new players coming in, I think he gets a free pass, if you like, for another 12 months ago.
I think that's right. I think that's what will happen. I don't think he'd entertain the idea of selling Núñez this summer. I just don't think that anyone will do that, to be honest. Slot, Núñez will probably not want to do it, but there is question marks. We have to move on because we're massively over on all of this. Is the Luis Diaz stuff, Chloe? You mentioned it. There's been loads of rumblings about Luis Diaz from fans for the last 12 months anyway, in terms of his output not being that killer. Now we're seeing a lot of stuff in the newspapers and stuff about Diaz potentially moving as well.
I don't want to sound rude or anything like that. However, hard work only gets you so far for me. Like, I love how hard working he is. And look, he can take on 3-4 players and get through them. But the problem is when Salah was off the boil and then Núñez stops becoming your outlet, who thrived at a time when Salah actually wasn't in the team. You look at Luis Diaz, and Luis Diaz can do everything really good up until the final third, where he actually has to be, clinical. And I think he's so skillful. I think he's boss, but I need more from him is the ultimate answer. His dad making rumblings about going to Barca and all these other teams. Like, we don't need that, mate. Could you just calm it down, please? First of all, could Barca have him?
No, he's getting no free tickets, by the way, his dad, this year. Not a fucking chance after the summer shit show.
He's got all the aways from last year now. He's got all the credit, so you're knackered.
Yeah, but the thing is that I just need more from him, is the thing. That I need the Luis Diaz who came into this side and moved Mane, who's one of our best ever forwards, and made him play up front, because Luis Diaz went, this is my shirt. And no one got near him. He was tricky, but actually in and around the area, he was he delivered so many times for you. He got to the byline and pulled it back and got so many assists. He was also good cutting in on the right and shooting across goal. I need more of that Luis Diaz. And I don't know whether it's the way he plays with the left back in terms of Robbo, or the left side of centre mid. I'm not sure. Or maybe it's actually Darwin Núñez isn't actually great for him. Maybe he needs more of a Cody Gakpo, who I actually thought when those two were playing towards the end of the season were quite good, because they kept inverting, they kept interchanging. Maybe it's people around him that aren't helping him, but either way, it's brilliant when he picks a ball up on the halfway line and he runs with it. But there was 2 chances he had against Manchester City, and I'll go back to it time and time again, where if that's Sadio Mane, the ball's in the back of the net and Liverpool are 2-1 up and they win the game. And it's that simple. And I need Luis Diaz to be more of that. I just do. And sadly enough for him, it's that case. And look, he could be that. Start of the season, Chelsea, that goal against Chelsea is brilliant. He can make the runs. He's got the intelligence there. He takes on players. But I just need him to be a bit more clinical in front of goal.
Do you think all that's fair, or do you think the back end of the season, once this dad stuff and the off the field stuff had sort of settled, that he, 5 goals, 4 assists in his last 17 ain't bad at all? Just saw that in a comment there from
it's enough.
Red just there.
Personally,
I don't think it's enough.
Yeah, listen, the Chloe makes all the right points, really. Big Luis Diaz fan. I thought he ended the season superbly well, actually. I thought in certain games in particular, when Liverpool were way off it, he was a standout performer, particularly in the Merseyside derby. Like, he carried that fight, essentially won single-handedly. He was outstanding. And no one could ever question his heart, his desire, his work ethic and all that sort of stuff. And you're absolutely right to make the point about what happened with his father, obviously mid-season, and the desire and the love he's shown for the football club to carry on through that was remarkable. Obviously the goal against Luton and all that sort of stuff, so take absolutely nothing away from him whatsoever. However, I don't think he's the answer. And if he is, I'm not quite sure what the question is, because although he has loads and loads of attributes, and the point Clay makes about when he first burst onto the scene for us, he was outstanding. Carabao Cup final, like, he was untouchable.
He didn't score many goals, though.
He never has. His end products always come into question, really. And that might have been a little bit harsh at times, because obviously he's following Sadio Mane. He's obviously been an injury to boot, a double injury, actually. He came back and then got injured again. So take all that into the equation without a single doubt. But yeah, I just think at 27 now, I think we've seen what Luis Diaz is. I think we've seen the best of Luis Diaz a little bit. I'm not sure he's ever going to be the prolific goal scorer that we'd like him to be. I don't think he's ever going to contribute with enough goals. And again, if we're always going to, I think most teams actually across the Premier League are going to have to share out the goal contributions and the goal, obviously, ending actions and all that sort of stuff, because nobody else has an Erling Haaland. We've just spoke about Darwin Núñez not being a 40, 35 goal a season man. Mo Salah might not be that again, who knows? So therefore, you're going to need your left-sided one to chip in with 15, 20. I don't think Luis Diaz is going to do that, personally.
That's the thing, isn't it? Sorry, Chloe, I'll come back to you on this. Because playing devil's advocate here, I think Diaz is less of a problem if he centre forward scores more goals. Just saying,
yeah, he probably is.
And that for me is where, like, the Darwin Núñez questions come back in. Because you've got a man there who cost 80 million quid who's supposed to get you 30 goals a season, who's not getting you 30 goals a season.
Yeah, exactly right. It depends on the 3 behind him, whether they're narrow or whether they're expansive. If they're narrow, they're midfielders. If they're expansive, then you're talking about forwards again, aren't you? So, you come back into the, does Diaz fit in that formation? Does Núñez, if Diaz does go, does Núñez go and play on the left-hand side when we're more expansive and want to play with width? I've not seen enough to know whether that 3 that sits behind the front is quite narrow or it's wide. And if it's wide, it's Mo on one side and someone else on the other, isn't it?
Yeah. We were speaking a lot before about Michael Edwards and how he's going to view a lot of these players now he's back. And obviously some of them he'll know, some of them were his signings, but quite a lot of them weren't, I think it's fair to say. I think one of the areas Michael Edwards will look at in particular is Luis Diaz, and they look at his goal output for somebody like that, and they look at potentially what you could get for him in the market, and again, his age will come into that factor as well. And I don't want to sort of speak for him on behalf of him, but I think I look at Diaz as being one whereby he could definitely upgrade that area.
I think that's right, and I think I'll get the stats up on the screen now in front of you to sort of prove Dan's point here. Salah, goal and assists 39, Darwin Núñez 31, Cody Gakpo 22, Diogo Jota 19, Luis Diaz 18. From the front five, he was the fifth. Yeah. And that's where he ranks in terms of the numbers of goals and assists.
And he must have been high on the amount of games played.
So in terms of minutes, he was the highest of all the players.
And therein lies.
And also, look, I once again love Luis Diaz, but it's also a big problem when you're up against Arsenal and Man City. And Man City have Erling Haaland, but then they have Alvarez, who just comes in and has a bit of fun. They then have Phil Foden, who gets ridiculous amounts of goals. They've got Kevin De Bruyne, who does the same. They've got Doku, who chips in here and there. Bernardo Silva chips in here and there. Like, they've got so many players there amongst the front line that pick up goals. So no matter if Erling Haaland's not had a touch of the ball and hasn't scored a goal, it's okay, because Alvarez will pop up, and Alvarez's stats are probably really good. Phil Foden's stats are probably extremely good. Then you look at Arsenal, and Arsenal's different. They don't have a Mo Salah, they don't have an Erling Haaland, but they have a Trossard who comes in and scores goals constantly. They've got Kai Havertz, who latter stages of the season was a really good. Saka, who is their probably vocal point. They've then got Odegaard, who gets at least 10 from that centre attack and mid spot. And not just do they have that, in terms of where you look at City and you think, oh yeah, but then they have Bernardo and they have Kevin De Bruyne and this and that. Arsenal is so good from set pieces. Yes. So they bring Declan Rice in, and Declan Rice gets about 8 goals. This centre-halves probably get a load of goals in terms of comparison to other defences. Ben White up there as well. So they spread their goals so well, where with Liverpool, it just sometimes feels like we are so reliant on those front three who play. And yet Maka and Sobbo have chipped in with goals, Trent here and there, but Sobbo fell off the ball and then Maka then shown up, and then Trent was in and out the team with injury. So from my perspective, those two teams that we're up against just have goals a little bit more all over the pitch, which you don't need if Darwin Núñez scores 25 to 30 goals and Salah gets that. You don't need that. But they're both not on that level. So
I suppose this is where the thinking of the formation comes in, because we naturally analyse it as a 4-3-3. This is what the three forwards do in a 4-3-3. But when you've got an advanced 10, that is just so different, because you may be hoping for 10-15 goals from them a year, aren't you? You know, Coutinho used to do it for us at times, didn't he? And having those 4 more attacking players with maybe 2 who are more possession based, they just alters how we need to think about these forward players moving forwards.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. That 10 role is pivotal to everything, and Harvey Elliott's quite capable, if he played in that role, of getting you 10, 15 goals a season, because he's got enough about him to do that. It's really interesting, as I said before, whether it's narrow, whether it's wide. If there's 2 sets of players for either or, aren't there, really? And you know, we're talking about extending Mo Salah's contract and all that stuff. Well, if it's slightly narrower, that makes life more difficult for Mo Salah as well. So this is the interesting part of. We all sat down at the start of this and said, dead keen to see where this goes and see what he does. And you know, he's got his 2 biggest problems for me are Diaz and Núñez, in terms of how he integrates them into what he wants to do. The defensive thing will sort
just out of interest, who's the most saleable asset out of the 2 for you?
Diaz, because there appears to be some interest in him and there isn't in Darwin, and we'd want to recover our money, and I don't see any club spending 70 million.
And I suppose we've already got Gakpo, and we've already got Jota, and we've already, we've got players who can play Núñez. You've already got players who can play that. You sell Núñez, and all of a sudden you're relying on just the Diogo Jota who gets injured.
You also got to add to the fact that I think Gakpo will play a lot of games in this formation because of what he offers. He might well be that guy that is the furthest up the pitch, because what you want from there is someone with intelligence that can hold the ball up, set it back to a Elliott or a Szoboszlai or a McAllister, who then give you your goal or your final pass before your goal. I don't know whether, well, I do know Núñez hasn't got that in his game, to be honest with you. It's just not what he's about. He's about playing off the shoulder and identifying a weakness in your back four and running him like Tarkowski doesn't like playing against Núñez because he singles him out. It does that. He finds the one that he wants to play off the shoulder of. So I think it's really interesting. And then for me, Diogo Jota's probably the next guy who plays in that single role up top on his own. And the more I look at it, the more you think about it, the more you look at the permutations of how that could be. You just see Darwin Núñez dropping down the reckoning in terms of who can play in that position and do it with effectiveness.
So sorry to interrupt, mate. We've got to finish this segment up. I'll ask each of you then for your front three in a 4-2-3-1 formation heading into next year. So you were talking just then. You were about to tell us yours anyway, I think. So what would yours be?
So if it's wide, I'm going to go with wide. I'm going to play Núñez off the left. I'm going to play Salah off the right. I'm going to have Gakpo on the top.
I did not expect anyone to say that. Okay.
Elliott's in behind him.
Okay. Chloe?
I've got to get Diogo Jota in there. When Diogo Jota's fit, he is my favourite player in this Liverpool side. It's that simple.
Where's he playing? Centre forwards?
No.
Left?
He'll play left.
What? This is wild.
Look,
What's going on here? We've just had Núñez off the left and Jota off the left.
Núñez is effective off the left, mate. We've seen it.
Okay. Jota up top. Harvey Elliott is the 10. Núñez left. Salah right.
What?
Yeah.
My mind is blown here.
I don't know what's going on. Salah, Jota, Gakpo.
Yeah.
Jota through the middle. Elliott in behind.
Yeah, that.
So why are you keeping hold of Núñez then? We all sat here and we're like, we're fighting battles to keep hold of him. You're like, no, he's got to stay. And now you binned him off anyway.
Oh, silly me for getting bulletproof Diogo Jota that's going to play all season long.
Good Lord.
What are you doing in terms of transfers then, Dan?
I think I'm cashing in on Luis Diaz. I'm signing somebody who's about 21, 22, who has a potentially higher ceiling, can be more of an end product merchant.
Left-hand side player,
yeah, for me. And then what I said before about the DM situation, if you can get an upgrade on, so I end up doing that. And then, like I said earlier, signing a left-sided centre-half. And can I also just add to the mix, as a point somebody made a moment ago, I forget who it was, apologies. Another big thing that Arne Slot needs to sort out, and I think Liverpool are already in the midst of doing that, it's a set-piece situation.
Yes.
Because diabolical. It was you about Arsenal, actually. Arsenal have exploited set-pieces so brilliantly, and Liverpool have been so terrible, for want of a better phrase, at it. We need to close that gap massively this summer.
Okay. What's your if you're making a signing, selling, buying?
Sell one, centre half first.
No, forwards.
Oh, I'm selling Diaz.
Yeah. And who are you buying? A centre forward or a left winger?
Left winger. Okay. Because I'm giving Núñez the extra season alongside Gakpo and Jota. Then I want a DM. I just do. And a left-sided, left-footed centre back / left back.
I'd sell Diaz. I'd say to Núñez, you were the best attacking player, one of the best forwards in Europe, and off the left, go and do it again. That's what I'd say. I'd throw that gauntlet down, and I would look at strengthening the double pivot. As much as I agree with everything you said about Besetic, if that was to happen again, we'd be left with the same bodies. So I'd go out and buy a really strong player to play in a double pivot.
I really struggle with the selling Diaz thing, and yet I'm so up against it here because I say, I've been saying for a few months now, he's just such a good footballer. Like, I really would struggle with buying someone and hoping that they're better than him. I just think it's a massive risk.
Like for like, we've got bodies in the club who can already do that.
Can I just say, none of us, including myself, have mentioned a backup stroke understudy.
Well, I was just about to move on to that because I wanted to ask about Doak and whether we think that's it. Because I actually probably would sell someone and buy a backup one because I'd be comfortable. For example, if you sold Diaz, I'd be comfortable with Gakpo over there and buying right. Because I think that's where we're completely imbalanced at the moment.
Yeah, that's true.
We don't own it. No. And we know AFCON is a thing.
I made an astounding comment before when Dan came out of your mouth when I said Szoboszlai is a ready-made replacement out wide for Salah. The
thing is,
he could do something for next season in rotation, but he's not my right winger.
The options are, I guess, a signing. Johan Bakayoko falls into that category. We'll talk about him later. But Ben Doak and Kate Gordon, I guess, a little bit.
Yeah,
they're not ready yet.
That's it. It's a major concern. I'd much rather keep Diaz and ask him to play on the right than go into next season with like a Ben Doak as the backup. You know what I mean?
That's a shout.
So, okay, Part 1 done. Jesus wept. We're going to have a very quick break and come back and do 5 signings very, very shortly. But before we do... No, let's go to the break. Let's go to the break first, actually. We'll be back in a minute.
Yeah, no problemo.
Come on, I do the claps.
Oh, yeah. Jürgen, thank you so much for taking the time.
Welcome. No, actually, I'm open. We can speak about absolutely everything. One of my absolutely favorite stories of all time, why a referee is as bad as they are. I lost more Champions League than other people play. Well, it's a crazy way to describe a career. It was the most touching moment I ever had in a football stadium. Penalty, handball. Winning the league is but that's not my fault. I'm really happy I didn't get a stroke in that moment. But it was absolutely insane. I mean, that's the cheekiest thing I ever saw in my life. So what's number 1? That is...
Hello, welcome back. What an epic first part of the podcast there.
I feel like there's a lot of hate going to be thrown our way, people.
I mean...
It's all opinions, guys.
It's all opinions, yeah. Like arseholes, everyone's got one. We know this. We've got the Fowler shirt to do. We're going to do a bit quick little... we've got a signed Fowler shirt. Nothing to do with arseholes. This is one of the absolute best players that's ever played for Liverpool. Go into our Redmen Plus Legends. We've got it on the screen. How do we do it? Click to spin or press Control and Enter. I think I'll click to spin if you don't mind. And we'll not do the drum roll. I'm just going to talk while it does it. This is for the signed Fowler shirt, and it is going to Bash by 03 or Bashby 3. Who knows? Get in touch. We will get that Fowler shirt sent out to you. It's an absolute belter prize, that one. It's just brilliant. I remember Paul coming in because he had a drink in the Five Ways once when Paul worked there. And Paul came in, I worked over the road in Owen's restaurant, and Paul came in with this empty bottle of X. I was like, what are you doing? He's like, this was Fowler's on cut of this. I was like, what? It's a fucking empty beer bottle, mate. Is it signed? No. Fucking bin it, lad. Anyway, I don't know whether he's still got his empty Beck's bottle.
I think we give it away.
I mean, Jesus Christ. Fair play, like. We've got a brand new podcast coming your way as well, starting on Friday. It's the Liverpool Transfer Podcast, and it's starting at 2:00 this Friday. So 2 main podcasts a week for you through the summer. Looking forward to that one. Ste will be hosting that. I think it's us.
Oh, yours free? Is it? Okay.
I have no idea. I should have probably not mentioned it, really.
I know I'm on it. I know that.
Yeah, I'm supposed to be. It's in the calendar. I'm sure Chloe's checking now.
Yeah, I am.
We don't know who's going to be on it.
It's just me, you.
I thought so,
Steve.
And Steve so far. He must be looking for all the guests. It's a bit sly, really, isn't it? When I really
No,
want to do
it does say guest needed. I won't lie to you. You're just being overlooked.
It feels harsh.
Anyway, I promise you we'll be talking transfer targets. So I asked Dan to compile a list of 5 players that Liverpool have been most heavily linked to. We're going to start off with Somerville from Leeds because no idea how you say that. Crysencio Somerville.
Nailed it.
Is that right?
Yeah, nailed it.
Well
Crysencio. Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Go ahead, mate.
Fair play.
Bit of that.
He doesn't say it better.
Well, you know, what can I say? I was born for this. Versatile winger, plays off the left flank. Somebody in a position that we've spent quite a lot of time talking about, Steve. Is this a player that you would like Liverpool to sign? Or is Darwin Núñez a better left winger than Somerville, I suppose, is the question.
Yeah, well,
yeah.
I'm not sure about this fella. And the reason why is we went and signed players from the Championship of a set standard, and we relied on Jurgen Klopp and Linda's making them into world superstars. We don't know if we have that in the club anymore, so we might go and spend 25-30 million pound, whatever it takes, to get a player like that, of that ilk, out of Leeds, and it just might not work. And I don't think we're in a position to take gambles like that at the minute, you know. So for me, I'd probably be a bit. We need to, not now, maybe 12 months down the line when we know what we're doing, whether we've got that capacity to turn players into world-class players with the coaching staff we've got, then we can start thinking about that again. I'm sure Michael Edwards will be thinking about that. So it is a possibility. The lad's talented, scores good goals. The one downside is, and even the Leeds fans are saying this, he didn't turn up on their biggest game at all.
You got subbed in the player final.
Yeah, so you have to look at that and think, we've just been saying that Diaz is an option to sell because at times when we've needed him, the output hasn't been there, and for the most minutes with the least assists and goals, you kind of want someone who's going to come in and say, I'm going to show you I can make this position mine in a squad of experienced and established players. I'm not sure. I'm really not sure, but I think it's a lot of money for a guy that for me it's on the fence whether it'd work or not.
Okay, 19 goals, 9 assists in the Championship. Obviously, there's a bazillion games in the Championship, Chloe. Played as an 8 as well during the season for Leeds. Is that the versatility you're looking for, or are you looking for experts?
I thought we said we'd had too many midfielders over here. I like him for 25 mil. I think that's absolutely sound. I've just asked Dan what his age was. 22, 23.
22, yeah.
I think he's a young, talented lad. He's doing really good in a alright Leeds side, coming to our side with that amount of quality. And I think hopefully he could improve his game. And like we mentioned there, you know, I'm not saying to sell Diaz, but if he is the one out of the front three, and I think one of the front three go, if he is the one, you know, I think we can get a decent amount of money for Luis Diaz. If you're replacing him with Somerville, you maybe have a little bit more money to invest in somewhere else in the team as well. I don't know whether it's what we 100% need, like as the main, you know, like it wouldn't be my first go-to problem to solve. But if you had the extra cash and he's only 25 mil, I don't think it's that big of a risk, is the only thing I'd say.
And Dan, I suppose the other thing to be mentioned about Somerville is he can play in all the positions across the front line.
Yeah, which is useful, of course it is, because you never quite know how a season's going to pan out and when you might need those sort of break glass options. So having somebody who has the capabilities and has done it before is definitely handy. It feels like a very Liverpool with Michael Edwards involved signing to me, which is why I give it quite a lot of credence personally, plus the sheer amount of noise has been in and around it. I think actually Leeds not getting promoted has sort of added further weight to it as well, because he definitely feels like a Premier League footballer in waiting. So it feels like a move will be on the cards for him, whether that's to Liverpool or not, who really knows, I guess. But yeah, I'm a fan of his. I think the numbers are there. They speak for themselves, really. And again, a lot of people sort of equating it to being Championship. Do we really want to be shopping in that market? But Steve mentioned the point a moment ago, we've had a lot of success shopping that particular market, albeit under Jurgen Klopp. So yeah, I think there is quite a lot of weight to it. I think there's a lot of credibility to it as well, to be honest with you. It's a sort of sign I could definitely see us definitely taking a much closer look at anyway.
Okay, well, we'll discuss that on Wednesdays.
Well,
Numerator. Yeah. Well, there was a tenuous link, so maybe he might have worked with some of Arne Slot's staff as well at Feyenoord. I think Slot took over the summer that he left, so there's a chance there that a lot of the coaches will have been the same who we might have spoken to and stuff as well. I'm sure this will be on Wednesday's Numerator show, Chloe.
Yeah.
Brand new show coming every single Wednesday with Chloe Bloxham, rating all of the rumours for Liverpool players.
There will be no Kylian Mbappe to Liverpool on that board, I can tell you that right now.
Leeds also, just on this, Leeds also need to sell. I know they got some Red Bull investment over the weekend, that was announced, wasn't it, which might have sort of appeased that particular issue for a while, but I know they are sort of right on the borderline when it comes to PSR and stuff like that. I think I've read recently they need like to sell £100 million worth of footballers.
Wow. So £100 million worth of football clubs.
Yeah, from signing that. Reuters one of them, isn't that? Wow. Reuters signing. Yeah, so he could be one of the ones that they see as a sellable asset.
Also, Willie Gnotto tried to leave to go to Everton earlier on in the season, and they managed to keep hold of him, so it feels like they'll have to sell one of either of them two this summer.
Okay, moving on then. I'll stick with you, Chloe. Levi Colwill, 21 years old.
Stop.
It's been liked by Liverpool for a very, very long time. Obviously, plies his trade at Chelsea. They could have to sell players because I'm sure they're going to sign another £1 billion worth of players this summer.
Wouldn't surprise you, would they?
For another new manager. We'll talk
I feel
about
like
that
they're just signing Brazilians here, there and everywhere already.
Would you like him?
I'd love Levi Colwill.
Yeah.
I would. In fact, I'd have loved him a year ago more than I do now. For some reason, I just don't think he's been as good for Chelsea this season as maybe what I'd expected. But yeah, I think under our management, I think he'd be really, really good. English as well, so helps out with the homegrown quota. Still young, was brilliant for Brighton, wasn't it? He's done sound for Chelsea. I wonder if he regrets it because he lost the League Cup to us a little bit. Who knows? But yeah, I think he's a really talented player. I wanted him so, like, I was so excited at the possibility of him signing for us in the last summer. A little bit less so now, but that's mainly because of the likes of, I don't know how to say his name, Pacho.
William Pacho.
Yeah, Pacho and him, Cape, being on Liverpool's radar as well. I now like the look of those two players. But yeah, Levi Colwill would be a really good signing.
Steve, on Colwill then, he fits that profile perfectly, doesn't he? The left centre-back, left-back.
Yeah, but Chelsea fans don't like him at left-back, so there you go. And that's one of the reasons probably why, Chloe makes the point that 12 months ago, it would have been, yes, he hasn't had a great season, but for most part of the season, Chelsea haven't had a great season, have they? And they've redeemed themselves. So the last 5-6 games of the season, had a bit of a run to get some form of European football, but he'd be a welcome addition. He's a good player, and homegrown quota thing's huge, and 21 years old, and he's most of his football career in front of him, you would think. Yeah. And he's from a raw attributes point of view, ticks most of the boxes, so I'd be up for that.
The only problem I have is how much money you're gonna. He signed a new deal last year. That's it, because also he is English, he's young, he's had Premier League experience for the majority of his career. The only problem I have is how much money Chelsea are going to want for you to get him out of it.
Probably similar to what we paid for Virgil, you would imagine.
I don't know, you might be right, and of course could be, but the thing is as well, I mentioned PSR a moment ago, Chelsea are even closer to that particular line, as we're well aware now. Yeah, maybe, but they're going to have to cut the cloth accordingly this summer without a shadow of a doubt, and the best way in which to do that when it comes to PSR is to sell players that come for your academy book because they cost you nothing, like Conor Gallagher's in the conversation, and Trevor Chalobah's in the conversation as well, and Levi Colwill likewise. So there could be a world whereby, if he sort of makes noises that he wants to move on, he's not happy at Chelsea, and Liverpool sort of renew their interest, who knows, there might be a world whereby that happens, and for me, I would be all over that. And you're both right, he didn't have the season that sort of the Brighton season earlier suggested he was going to have for Chelsea, but again, who did come out of that season for Chelsea with flying colours other than Cole Palmer? Nobody really, so I'd be all over that.
Okay, next one then. Hassan Ouedraogo, 18-year-old, predominantly box-to-box midfielder. Goal reported in November 2023 that he has a buyout clause worth just £22 million, which can be achieved during the summer transfer window. Anyone interested in him?
I love a bargain, but I don't know who the lad is.
Schalke. Yeah, very highly thought of, obviously in the Bundesliga. Broke a few records already for Schalke.
And his ankle ligament last season.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think he had something prior to that as well when he was really young. I think Bayern Munich have been sniffing around him as well. I think all the big boys have been sniffing around him really in European football.
Alonso?
Yeah, possibly.
No, it's the new
Pogba, was it?
Pogba.
New
Paul Pogba.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Which is not a great thing. Like, I don't want the original
I don't know
Paul
about
Pogba.
That. I had this conversation about somebody else. Gravenberch. I liken Gravenberch to Paul Pogba, and I think a best version of Paul Pogba is one hell of a footballer. So, albeit there were moments in Pogba's career.
See, when you say to me, he's the new, I need a full career. I need a view of the full career. I think
not just
shite.
He's the new meet you for 6 months.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. If you just said to me, he's the Paul Pogba at Juventus. Sounds
for a bit, yeah. That's a good point.
No problem.
Not the new Amir Zaki at Hull.
No, exactly.
Okay,
you've got to give me a player I can get me teeth into for a career.
Okay, but Ouedraogo again. I don't know whether profile-wise he fits in terms of position. So I'm always speaking about like Carvalho, Curtis Jones, Harvey Elliott. But what I will say is if you are looking at terms of like high ceilings and potential star of the future, he definitely fits into that category because 3-4 years ago, Liverpool, Jude Bellingham, Jamal Musiala, people like that, he could well be following those sort of footsteps. So maybe there is something about just getting him on your books and having a real star.
Like it? Like the idea of it?
I mean, like I said, I love a bargain. I love, being able... I mean, it seems a low risk once again, which I said with Somerville. The only thing is how many midfielders does this squad need? For the love of God.
And box to box, not a sort of DM as well.
No, it's not. And also, if he's coming in and he's not better than McAllister, Szoboszlai or any of those, you kind of hindering his...
But Bajcetic as well falls into that category, doesn't it?
You're hindering so many people's development, including the lad's own.
Okay, we'll move on then. Centre-back, William Pacho, 22 years old, Ecuadorian left-back, just finished his first season in the Bundesliga. We've had him mentioned already a couple of times. Left-hand side, left-footed, 51 million quid apparently from Gianluca Di Marzio, was saying Frankfurt would accept 51 million pounds. But he does have 4 years left on his contract, and that doesn't seem very Liverpool to me.
And my worry with him is it would be like cloning Canate and playing him on the other side, because I've watched a bit of this guy since I've done the research. He's rash at times as well. He dives out, tries to nick balls and finds himself out of position, but on the ball, very comfortable, quick, aggressive. So he's a centre-back that's going to go and win you the ball first phase, not sit around, wait for see what happens and then try and... So he's a first phase. That's really interesting because Canate is a first phase ball winner as well, and then you've got to have someone with intelligence like a Van Dijk that waits to see what happens from that. So my concern would be if you played both those two together, you've got very, very gung-ho centre-backs. If you ended up with a game where you had to play Canate and him together, your goalkeeper would be
aren't you? Because one's proactive and one
would be terrified of the fact that both these two, and I think Canate dives into the back of midfield because we're easy to play through. So if we can change that, maybe that changes too. But that good raw attributes, great raw attributes. But it always depends for me on if you signed a player like that for that kind of money, you'd have to know he's partnered up well, because he's not going to think about what if he misses it, what's behind him.
Okay, anyone else? Any takings on William Pacho?
Raw is probably the word. I would say. Again, has all the assets, all the things you'd want, all the boxes you'd want in the centre half in terms of physicality, much like Ibu Konate, as you say, but often his decision making can leave a lot to be desired. I just think Liverpool have been in this market now for about 12, potentially even 18 months about needing and wanting that left-sided centre-half. So I think it's almost certain. Again, I come back to it's like when, not if, Liverpool go and do it. It's the chosen one. And he, at the minute, feels like the most likely candidate. So, yeah, there's a lot to it. I think 22, as you said, already played for Ecuador. So, yeah, I think there's definitely legs to that one.
I like him. I don't know whether this is a worry, but I like him more on the ball than what he actually does defensively, and I don't know whether that is what you need in a centre half.
That's a worry.
I don't know whether that is, playing out from the back is so important. Yes. That is modern football now, but at the same time, if that is the best attribute, it leaves a lot to be desired in terms of actually, when you're facing counterattacks and things like these. What I would say is he's young, so you can develop on all of these things. And I think he's a boss centre half, like you said, raw, rash, but with a bit of advice and coaching, hopefully you can kind of, he's young enough that he's not a Romero where you can try and tell him 100 times and it's not getting through to him at all. Hopefully it's a case of if you taught on it and kept giving that same message, he'd adapt to it. But yeah, I really like him on the ball, is a big point of that. And I actually think we lack that in Ibu Konate. I think Ibu Konate is not great on the ball. Kwanzaa, love on the ball. So yeah, I like him. Maybe not my first choice, just the fact that it's another non-homegrown talent. And who knows, with the players that we're getting rid of, we might lose a couple of those spaces. But yeah, I really like him on the ball.
It's interesting is we're going to goalkeeper next, but just to give you an idea, so far we've got a left winger in Somerville, a centre back in Colwell, a midfielder box to box in Odrago, another centre-back in Pacho, goalkeeper next, centre-back again, and a right winger. It's funny, really, there's no DM that we've kind of been linked with on this list, which is just interesting because I think all of us would say left-sided centre-back, DM, they're the two priorities.
But that speaks to me, to the fact that we won't be saying goodbye to Taro Endo.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I
But then we all think we need an upgrade on him anyway.
Yeah, we do, but I don't think Liverpool are going to do that. And I don't think the journalists think Liverpool are going to do that either.
I don't think Liverpool spend a lot of money in the summer at all, really.
Don't you know?
No, don't.
They'll spend money.
Not lots.
What do you think? What are you talking when you say
100?
that?
No.
Not even that.
Took a loan out to buy Soboslai. It wasn't club's money, was it? So they're clearly managing their finances.
Back in the Champions League now, though.
I don't see them spending 100 million.
Put a number on it.
60
net.
If they sell Diaz and the Diaz money, but if they don't sell Diaz, I don't think they'll go large on the transfer window.
That's about right for Liverpool.
I don't think that's too far away.
If they don't sell Diaz, then I think it's one or two signings of the Crescencio type of money, Somerville kind of money.
Two of them.
Two of those, which are players who come in and grow into positions within the club. I want them to go and do the marquee midfielder thing, but I don't think they're going to.
If they're going to do it somewhere, it's got to be the centre-back though, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
If
that's
they're going to
number
put
one.
big
I
money
would
down.
throw the kitchen sink at it and buy Branthwaite of Everton.
It's not gonna happen.
There's some words you've just said out
I
loud.
would, yeah. Because
Player, like.
quality player, mate. Young.
Do you think he's good enough on the ball? And the reason I say that is because Everton play in such a way.
You don't know, do you? That's
No,
we don't
yeah.
know.
point.
In terms of backs to the
They
ball
say
defending.
yes, and you will
yeah.
find out in the summer, maybe.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and I don't really have any doubts that he is, because I actually think he's a very good footballer and I like him. Ped might be able to tell us better, but because of the way they
Just ask
operate,
him. Branthwaite on the ball,
on the
good.
ball.
Jared Branthwaite?
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
On the
Honestly,
ball.
I'm not messing with it. Like John Stones level.
Okay,
Dead
because I'm not
hard.
being harsh, but because of the way you operate and you're obviously quite deep and you want to head it and kick it.
Plays it out the back.
He's the one who does it.
I've just said we should throw the kitchen sink at it and give you whatever you want.
Messing?
If you could see his face.
Are you messing?
No.
Not a chance on earth.
No.
Do you think he'll go
We'd sell him to
United?
Yeah, he probably would. Yeah.
Salaman before he sold him to him.
Cool. Thanks for that, Ped. Much appreciated.
In your podcast. Do I think he'll go if someone offers 90 million?
90 million
There you go.
quid.
Would you 90 million?
No. There's a compromise there.
Anyway, again, maybe.
That's 90 million for anyone other than us. We'd have to pay off the 777 debt and finish up
That's a good
building
point.
them a
And the
stadium.
Jury's money as well.
Yeah, and
that's a good
everything
point.
else.
Yeah, no, yeah, I like Branthwaite, I do, but yeah, I don't see that happening personally. As much as with
Right.
Nicky Barmby, the last
We
one
need to
do it?
keep moving. I'm sorry. Goalkeeper Justin Bielau. Is that how you say
I'm
it?
going to say Justin Bieber, and I don't know why.
He was Arne Slot's goalkeeper, wasn't he?
Yeah.
26 years old. We need a backup goalkeeper. Is he gonna go and leave a fairly good side in Feyenoord to come and be a backup for Liverpool, or is this
is a
planning
bit
for the
fancy-
future?
This is a bit fanciful, this one, isn't it?
Do you think?
Yeah.
I think you might fancy it,
You think he'd fancy coming to Liverpool to be a backup?
possibly.
Nah, don't be fucking silly.
But, and it's kind of the opposite of what I say about Kostas Tsimikas, but he's played quite a bit of footy now.
So he just thinks, let's just give it off.
He's still
Give it
out
up.
26.
That
He'll still be
retired
playing,
life, that
still be
number
playing
two
Carabao
life.
Cup and FA Cup and all that sort of stuff. Maybe.
Surely not. What type of a fucking character wants to do that?
So you go from Champions League football to throwing crosses in for Adrian to catch before the game, mate. Not happening, is it?
fucking way.
We know Adam's not going to be here as well. I don't know. But we're going to need to sign a backup keeper. Maybe it's Trafford, maybe it's Patterson, maybe it's this guy.
I'm not sure. I'm not having that he'll leave for us. Like, I'm gonna talk about one more player. Then I'm gonna sack off Yoro. But we're going to talk Bakayoko. Left-footed, valued around 40 odd million quid. Apparently, Chloe, very much a data player.
Right up Michael
You
Edwards'
love a data
street.
player.
I love a data player. Yeah, like him a lot. I really, really do. And also, that right wing, like we mentioned before, we've got no cover. It goes from Mo Salah, who's, the best of the best, to then Ben Doku, who's up and coming. And I know you love him, and I think he's boss. But especially after doing his ACL, I think it was last season, that's a massive gap that you're going to have to bridge there. Talented, young, he's I think a real big Michael Edwards kind of signing, FSG kind of signing. I'm really excited by that. So hopefully, but once again, I do think right wing is a problem that we've got. If we keep Diaz, it's one of them where he just kind of plays there. Soboslai, you just make him play there because Salah is going to play, pretty much every single game if he can. Wouldn't be my first solution to fix, but my word, if we went in for Bakayoko, I'd love that.
That's the type. When I said before, I would sell, like, if we sold Diaz, I'd buy a right. That's the type of player that I'd be thinking about.
Yeah.
Someone who's that age, who's cheap enough. Well, they're not cheap, but
In this day and age, yeah.
in this day and age, 40
yeah.
million's not bad. Who can sit and learn the ropes for a year, maybe two under Salah before you take the role. I'd be really excited by this one, Ste.
I'd do exactly what you just said. I'd roll the dice on Diaz for that, 100%. For all the reasons you've just said. So for me, of all the ones we've discussed, if I had to sign one off as a mad management thing, that would be the guy. That'd be the one.
Dan, do you like it?
I love it, yeah. I love Bakayoko, and I think it's definitely a Liverpool type deal. I can see getting done. There's no two ways about that. And I think all the points you've all just made there, his numbers are brilliant. They have been for a couple of years now, it feels like, as well. Seen a little bit of him internationally too, so he's got that sort of pedigree. And again, I come back to what I said a few times already in the past hour or so. Liverpool, he's in that sweet spot, isn't he? He's played a decent amount of football. He's a good age. His ceiling still feels like it's ahead of him. It's all still to come. So yeah, I think he smacks of a Liverpool signing all over. So yeah, I'll be all over this one.
Cool. Okay, there we go then. I think we've pretty much solved all of Liverpool's problems in the last 2 hours.
And also created loads as well.
Steve just give his one. Who would be the one?
Bakayoko.
Yeah, it'd be back. I love Levi Gola, but it'd be Bakayoko.
Levi Gola.
I still think there's a chance, and I don't know whether this is possible now, but I still think Liverpool do something really cheap, like a Lloyd Kelly or something like that. You know what I mean?
Isn't he off to Newcastle?
Well, him and Tosin Adebayo.
That was my point. Was do something for get a free in or something like that. A cheap player, like. Yeah, what were you going to say then?
Adebayo's the other one who I thought Liverpool might go for, but he looks like he's Chelsea bound now, I think. So yeah.
Surprise.
There you go. Loads more problems than we fixed, I think is right, as Chloe mentioned. We've got Deep Dive tomorrow with myself and Josh Williams. Wednesday is the new Rumerator show with Chloe. Steve does Geno Insight with Paul Gorse through the summer on Thursday, and we're all back for a brand new weekly transfer podcast on Friday. That's the YouTube lineup. We've got a new show for Dan on Friday as well.
Yeah, Premier League transfer tier list on Friday, going through the whole Premier League and the ins and outs and the rumours and all that sort of stuff. So right up my street.
We've got the Biased Football podcast, which will start off today, which will become the Biased Transfer podcast. That's next on Redmen Plus. There's another deep dive on Redmen Plus. The full Paul Gorse show will be on there. There's loads and loads of stuff throughout the summer. But for now, thank you very much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure, Steve, Chloe and Dan. Thank you all for watching, and thank you to Joe on the 1, 2s and 3s. We'll see you next time. Ta-ra.